Today, we're going to be talking about some of the most criminally overlooked FNAF fan games the community has ever created. Despite their incredible quality, unforgettable gameplay, and amazing ideas, these games somehow slipped beneath the radar of most players. Some of these honestly deserve to become household names, so let's get into it. When I'm looking for FNAF games to cover, I usually look for a few baseline things, a few bare minimums. However, I do also look for games that have a bit of a goofy aspect to them. For example, the fact that Five Nights to Remember literally has Gooner bait built into it. I think stuff like that is pretty funny, so it's definitely something I look for when determining which games are going to get a Dxtr White video. The game I've played recently started fairly normal with a gameplay loop I enjoyed. However, near the end, something happened that was so completely out of left field, I was at a loss for words. What the fuck am I looking at? What the fuck? I'm very excited to talk about this game as I had a very fun time playing. So sit back and enjoy the ride as we dive nuts first into animatronic memories. Animatronic memories starts as many official FNAF games do, that being showing a newspaper clipping asking for a security guard to monitor the building at night. Excited, jumping for joy, and kicking our feet and shit, we accept the offer and start our first night on the job. Entering our new office, we look around and notice that this place is clearly not very normal. Able to look in three directions, directly in front of us we have our computer, which lets us view our cameras. To our right we see the door to our office, and to the left we have a large window. Something I've never really understood about some buildings is why they have windows to other rooms in the building. I'm no architect, but that just doesn't really make sense. I don't know what possible purpose it could realistically serve. Also, this one has a fucking door on it. Fantastic. This game doesn't use a power system. Side note, I am so glad more FNAF games are choosing to move away from the power mechanic. I personally never found it very enjoyable, so I appreciate that many games are choosing to remove it so that your strategy can focus more on nerve control and skill rather than balancing a number. In a game where my only three actions are checking lights, closing doors, and watching cameras, boy do I sure love it when a central gameplay mechanic is limiting how much of those actions I'm allowed to do. It's so much fun. But anyways, since this game doesn't use power and there are two doors, I was curious how this game would pull that off. Let's begin with the window door. This one is very easy. If you're not holding the door down manually, it will automatically rise. Simple. Now let's turn our attention to the much more interesting door, the one that's actually a door. This door, you'll notice, has three fuses that connect to it. Just like Five Nights at Candy's, the longer you have a door closed, the higher the meter beneath it will rise. But unlike Candy's, this game actually used the mechanic in a much better way. If your meter is to increase fully, one of your fuses will break and the meter will reset. If you lose all three fuses, you will no longer be able to close the door, and the animatronics will very quickly close the gap on you and very quickly close your mouth so you don't make too much noise when they're obliterating your guts like iDubbbz obliterates his reputation. And that's really all you need to know to be able to play this game. All the mechanics are incredibly simple, which I think a lot of people could agree with me when I say that's a breath of fresh air, especially when it seems like every new FNAF release is just trying their best to get on the max mode list. But anyways, on to the threats that this night introduces, that being Bonnie and Chica. Let's pause for a moment. I want to really take the time to appreciate these character designs. Not only are they creepy, not only are they gorgeous, but they're also extremely uncanny. Looking at these characters just makes me uncomfortable in a very unique way. Especially Chica, like fucking ew. Anyways, let's start with Bonnie. Bonnie does exactly what you'd expect him to. He starts on the show stage, randomly walks around the cameras, and eventually lands at your door. Which again, with the way these characters look, it's just really fucking uncomfortable looking, which I love. All you need to do is close the door and you're a-okay. He'll pound on the door and you can reopen it. Chica is much the same, except she's fatter. Since these two are really just here to teach you the basics, beating the night is very easy. But before we can move on to night 2, we get the pleasure of talking about the very neat post-night minigames. After each night, we get to play a repairing minigame. I will say, technically speaking, these aren't really games at all, more just a holding down the mouse simulator, but I love little extra things like this. I would have enjoyed them in a game like Jolly as well, But unfortunately for that game, especially Jolly 3 Chapter 1, the minigames there take so fucking long, I'd rather rip out my own catheter than ever play them. However, in this game, they're short, sweet, and pretty fun for what they are. We're always tasked with replacing a piece of whatever animatronic is given to us. On night 1, that's Bonnie. The challenge of these nights, if you can even call it a challenge, come in the form of the character behind us, a ratchet ass looking female balloon boy who probably has a clussy. What the fuck? Holy fuck! Throughout the minigame, you will hear her making noises behind you, slowly inching closer and closer. When she gets too close, you'll have to quickly whip around and fucking tase her, which I think is just awesome. Afterwards, she'll back up off you and the cycle continues. Overall, not too difficult, but something extra that I think adds some spice to the game. Something you'll notice about the night sections is that they feel a lot shorter than most FNAF games, and that's because they are. But where the game lacks in length of night segments, it totally makes up for in the form of its 8-bit minigames. Usually, I fucking hate these, but I actually don't mind the minigames found here. Let's go over the post-night 1 8-bit minigame. The purpose of these minigames is exactly what you'd think, that being introducing lore and of course sliding in some secrets that allow for a different ending. This game only has 2 of those, thankfully, so I'll be going over the process of getting the true ending right now because no shit. In the first minigame, you play as Freddy. It seems that throughout these minigames, all the characters are preparing for a party. In each minigame, whichever character you play as will have a different task to complete. Freddy's task is being a fat lazy fuck and just talking to the other characters. Wow, Freddy, you're really taking pages out of your toy counterpart's book, huh? Fat lazy piece of shit. Yeah, watch all your coworkers do the work and still take the credit at the end, dick. Anyways, completing the task is obviously not what's important in these minigames, as if you are to complete the tasks, the minigame will end and you won't be able to collect the secret item you need for the true ending. What you should really focus on doing is finding a glitched sprite somewhere around the building. Very similar to going into the glitched areas in FNAF World. For Freddy, the wall will be glitched between 2 tables at the bottom of the map. Touching this glitched area will bring you back to some black space Amori type shit. In this black space, all you have to do is find a Freddy plushie and bring it to one of the crying children. After doing so, you'll be met with a black and white animatic, in which you're in the POV of a kid entering a Fazbear location before getting lured into the back room by a man in a bunny costume. Fuck that molester, bro! Get him out! No, get that fucker out of here, bro! Oh my god. What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh great, I think we all know where this is going. Moving on to night 2, which introduces one new threat, that being Freddy himself, the hulking, titanous, gargantuan ass bear. He attacks the door exactly like Bonnie and Chica, except he does something even more cancerous. He will also attack your door, except he moves through cameras a lot faster than Bonnie and Chica do, and once he reaches your door, he'll enter a lot faster than them as well. Instead of jump scaring you, he does like Phone Guy says and gets a little bit quirky, choosing to reach his hand into your fuse box and immediately break all of them, then jump scare you. Now, as cool as that is, I do have to ask the question, if he kills you after doing this, then why doesn't he just kill you? Don't get me wrong, I love little details like this and I'm not necessarily complaining, but it's a genuine question. I'm assuming the dev just didn't want to have 3 characters appear to do the exact same thing, even though, to be fair, Bonnie, Chica, and Freddy all end up doing the exact same thing, just at various speeds. This is something that could be attributed to laziness, but you have to answer whether you think it is for yourself, and I'll be talking about it a little bit later. Post Night 2 repair needs you to fix up Chica and her cupcake. Ew! Ew! Bro, this bitch is disgusting, dude. Again, this is much the same as the last one. Tootsie, which, yes, by the way, is that clown's name, is more aggressive, but it's still pretty easy to deal with. However, the Post Night 2 minigame is different, and that makes me excited, because, would you believe me if I said this, I will actually enjoy talking about the lore in this game. I know, crazy. Turns out, when I'm told a story where I don't have to spend a billion fucking hours searching for answers, that actually makes it fun. Anyways, in this minigame you play as Bonnie, and the goal of the minigame is to do some sweeping, aka manual labor, something Toy Freddy would avoid at all costs because he's unemployed. But fuck actually doing the task at hand, that's for retards. Instead, we're going to warp the fabric of space and time by touching a busted up table and be teleported directly to hell. Doesn't that sound way better than doing the everyday tasks of a customer service job? Awesome. Well, once you enter black space, all you need to do is find a Bonnie plush and once again give it to one of the crying children. Once again, afterwards we get a cutscene where we're in the POV of a child, this time being bullied by some fat ass children. Have you guys ever realized that like every bully that's ever existed is about the size of a Ford F-150? Whatever. We get saved by the man in the bunny suit and then immediately get betrayed and murdered. That's right, kids. Not only can you not trust your peers, you can't trust adults either. I guess we should all just give up. Night 3 time. What's the new threat introduced here? And will it have a different mechanic than everything else we've seen so far? This night introduces a fan-made character, something I don't often see when fan games use the official characters. This character's name is Anne, a female Foxy equivalent. Give me Rule 34. What? Who said that? Anyways, she begins on the Pirate's Cove camera next to Foxy. She will, just like Foxy from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, move through phases on the camera until she's ready to attack. When she does, you'll be able to see her run off of the Pirate's Cove camera, wherein she will then book it to your window. When she arrives, you will have to quickly close it until you hear her leave. So, hey, something new, kind of, not really, it's just another door, but I guess that's better than nothing. Oh, did I mention Foxy also activates on this night? Well, he does. Wanna know what he does? Disappointingly, it's the exact same thing Anne does, just a lot slower. Isn't that weird? The fast-running Five Nights at Freddy's character is now slow. Like, I know he has a peg leg, so that's obviously making him move slowly, but like, goddamn, why'd you have to butcher my boy like that? He did not deserve it. But yes, as I've said, Foxy does the exact same thing Anne does. I will say that because they move at different speeds, there are some very rare instances where it can lead to some stress while watching their timings, but the odds of this happening are pretty slim, so you probably will never even experience it. That's honestly my biggest problem with this game. It looks amazing, I'm interested in the story, the sound design is fantastic, and you even managed to make me enjoy the 8-bit minigames. But this game has introduced 5 characters so far, and yet somehow, with 5 characters, there's only 2 mechanics to deal with all of them, and both of those mechanics are closing a door and waiting a few seconds. I've tried my best to think about how I can view this positively, but I really just can't. Sure, I personally like it when FNAF games aren't too hard and I can beat them without too much strain, but I can easily see how this game's mechanics could be a turnoff for some people. There's just not enough happening to keep a lot of people interested. We have one character to talk about who switches up the mechanics a little bit, but I still don't even think that's enough, especially given the time this game was released, that being February of 2025. You might question my complaining of this. Dxtr, the original Five Nights at Freddy's, only had 1 mechanic, 2 if you're being generous and calling Foxy a different mechanic. And to that statement, I'd agree. However, there are 2 points that I have to give to that argument. Yes, FNAF 1 only had 2 mechanics, closing the door and stalling Foxy. However, the first thing you need to acknowledge is that Five Nights at Freddy's 1 was released in 2014 and was a pioneer of an entire genre. It has been 11 years since that game's release. I think it's reasonable to expect newer games in the same genre to have evolved, and for the most part, they totally have. Look at The Joy of Creation, Tycoon Sons Lumber Co., Showman's Awakening. All of these games have added so much to the central idea that is Five Nights at Freddy's. This game just doesn't do that. On top of that, let's dive a little bit deeper into Five Nights at Freddy's 1 for a moment. While yes, the only real mechanic in that game is closing the doors for defense, we need to talk about the synergy between Freddy and Foxy. Foxy requires you to look at your cameras to stall him. If you don't, while yes, you can close the door to keep him out, with every pound your door will lose power dramatically, which incentivizes you to look at him. It seems Scott saw a potential bore in this design, so he made Freddy work the same as the others, but with a twist to synergize. Freddy can't enter your office while your cameras are down, and he's the only animatronic that will never move backwards, meaning that once he's at your door, he will stay there. He's also the only door animatronic that will not break your buttons, so you don't have to close the door while you're in your office. However, on the contrary, he doesn't work the same way the other two door animatronics do. You can't see him when the light is on, and at the same time, Chica can be at your door while Freddy is also at it because of this. Because of this mechanic, it's very likely that Freddy will be at your door for most of the night, especially on nights 5 and 6. Since the game forces you to check your cameras to stall Foxy, this leads to you needing to close your door before you check the cameras to not have Freddy enter. This is a good synergy between two characters and is why I wouldn't complain about this in that game. In animatronic memories, however, there is no difference between characters that attack the same way like this. Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica all do the exact same thing. Anne and Foxy also both do the exact same thing. Sure, Freddy may break your fuses first, but that doesn't change the fact that he's still doing the exact same thing, just going to your door and killing you. He just happens to have an animation before that happens. Now, is this a bad thing? I think that's more up to a case-by-case basis. While yes, I do feel that it's boring, I still had plenty of fun playing this game and I would still recommend it to people. I just think it's obviously important to point out flaws like this when analyzing a game. Sorry about that tangent. Moving on to the repair minigame. In this one, we're asked with fixing up Freddy, who has some insane crow's feet. Like, holy shit, this guy's old as fuck. But this doesn't change anything from the last two, so let's move on to the 8-bit minigame. In this minigame, we play as Chica, tasked with collecting ingredients for a cake. Shut the fuck up! I don't care about your bitch-ass task! Let's go to hell! Oh, but before we do that, I should mention that there's an endoskeleton that starts spawning, and if you touch it, you die. So, like, don't do that. Anyways, once we're back in black space, you once again have to get a plushie. This time, doing so is a bit different. You'll see several eyes on the floor. Interacting with them will cause them to close. Once you close all of them, the plushie will spawn and you can give it to the child. After doing so, we're shown another cutscene, this time in the POV of a child who wants a prize from the prize counter. The man in the bunny suit gives us a Chica plush before inviting us to the back room. Once inside, he stabs us, and the last thing we see is our Chica plushie on the floor as we bleed out. So, that's sad. Dude, that's fucking cool as shit, bro. That's cool. No, not her, please! Please, don't ruin your game. Please don't do it, please. Please, I'm begging you, don't ruin your game. Don't add a music box. Please, 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 for the love of God, don't do it. Anyways, night 4 time. This introduces Harley. What? Who the fuck is Harley? Well, the marionette, of course, duh. The marionette thankfully doesn't work in the way you think she does. No music box to wind because the developer of this game isn't Satan. The marionette has 2 different ways of attacking you, something I think is awesome. I think it's super cool when characters can do more than one thing, and I think it's something I'd like to see more often. Her first attack consists of her attempting to shut down the cameras. When she leaves her box, the camera has a chance to glitch. If it does, you have to quickly find her on one of the cameras and press a newly appearing sound disruption button to make her fuck off. The other option of attack is through your vent. I didn't even tell you guys that we had a vent because it's really never really important. Instead of glitching the cameras, when Harley leaves, she can make a bell noise as well. When you hear that, you will need to quickly check the kitchen camera and shock her ass, because once she enters it, you're gonna be completely done for, as there's no way to stop her once she enters. Oh hey, something new! Fortunately, sound cues were added so she's not completely AIDS, but if you can beat her, which shouldn't be too difficult, we move on to the repair section where we have to fix Foxy, who, holy shit, has seen better days. God damn, what'd they do to you? First a peg leg and now they filleted you? What the fuck? But after that, we can move on to the 8-bit minigame. Hooray! In it, we play as Anne. Who gives a fuck what the task is? Let's go to the black space using another table. Hooray! This black space section is confusing. So confusing, I actually don't even know how I completed it. Basically, as you walk through black space, you'll see several character symbols on the ground. Then, at the end, you can find several symbols that you can change into a sort of code. You might think, oh hey, just input them in the order you saw them. That's what I thought too, but at least when I was playing, that was seemingly impossible. Then I noticed that a few of the squares had a symbol that no other square had, so I tried to see if each square had a unique symbol, but they didn't. Then I noticed there was this dark rabbit symbol that didn't appear anywhere else in black space, so I tried to input that into each square, but that also didn't work because not every square had one. I'm so serious, I have no idea what the intended puzzle is here. I ended up just randomly guessing it, and eventually I got it. I guess set that to Foxy. Set this to Bonnie. Set this to Chica. I literally do not know what I did. I promise you, I literally do not know what I did, but I did it. If you guys have any idea what the intended solution to this puzzle is, please let me know in the comments. But once you get the plush and give it to the child, we take another look at another cutscene. This time, the man just ganks some random ass kid who was just standing there minding their own business and murders them. No motive. Jesus Christ. I'm not going to bother talking about Night 5 since it's just a harder version of Night 4. Additionally, there's no repair section after this night, only being one final 8-bit minigame. In this one, we play as Foxy. Going into black space, we can place all the plushies we've collected on podiums, which will give us the Foxy plush. Placing it on the final podium will spawn one final child and the minigame will end. Being tossed into one final cutscene, we see another kid get shanked to death. Amazing and deserved. Shouldn't have been a child, dumbass. But what about Night 6? Well, of course, as usual, we were told not to come back tonight, but we said fuck it, we ball, and decided to come back anyways. Nobody was present. We enter the office, but get a strange feeling that we're being watched. Night 6 is just a harder version of Night 5, but however, if you got the bad ending by not collecting the plushies in the black space and the 8-bit minigames, this night will be completely different, but we'll cover that later. After completing the night, a literal masterpiece of a cutscene plays out. Seriously, I can't undermine how amazing this cutscene really is. It starts with us standing in front of the arcade machine. Our suspicions are confirmed when Afton comes up behind us and fucks our shit up, knocking us out. Soon after, the arcade game glitches as fuck, and all of the animatronics walk into the back room. And let me tell you, they're itching to serve up a knuckle sandwich. Jesus Christ. Cut that out, that's corny as fuck. Afton pulls out a shocking device to fuck with the robots, which shuts them down. Thinking he's won, Afton lets his guard down. That's when the spirits of the children attack him. They loosen a pipe on the wall and break it off. They shove Afton onto it, and as the pipe impales his chest, his lungs fill with blood. He slowly dies, staring at the ones whose lives he so easily took. We wake up to see the souls disappearing, finally able to rest. We leave the building, and animatronic memories comes to a close. That is, if you chose to do the true ending. And even though that final cutscene is actually a cinematic masterpiece, I actually think the bad ending is more enjoyable. Why? Well, if you don't collect the plushies, when you re-enter the building on the overtime night, instead of entering the office, we go into an unknown room with several bags laid on the floor. Opening them up, we find the actual fucking remains of the children. What the fuck? This game is so cool. Caught off guard, Afton kills us. However, before we can pass on, a shadow rabbit pulls us into the darkness and we enter another fucking dimension. What the fuck am I looking at? What the fuck? That's right, the overtime night in this game is different depending on which ending you get, and goddamn, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. You'll notice that this office is set up in the same way as the normal office, having 3 directions to look in, one your desk, another your door, and the final being your window. Let's go over each threat because there's a few of them. Starting with the shadow rabbit, you'll have to constantly watch your cameras in case he appears on one of them. When he does, you have to press the big goofy ass red button on your desk to make him disappear. And that's really it for him. And that's actually the only reason you ever have to check the cameras. So, how do the other characters add anything of substance? I'm glad you asked. I'm gonna tell you because it's a fucking review, dumbass. You'll also notice on your desk you have 2 masks. Now, if you're anything like me, seeing these 2 things scare you a little, but I promise the mechanic with these 2 isn't ass at all. Occasionally, you'll see either a fucked up baby clown face or a Ballora looking face appear on your static monitors. Whichever face you see is the mask you will have to put on until the face goes away. Bada bing, bada boom, that's another threat down. Now, the main threats we're being attacked by in the bad ending are the souls of the children, because by not collecting the plushies, we've basically been neglecting them. At your door is where Bonnie attacks. The door starts closed and is closed most of the night, with you actually not even being able to open it. Occasionally, Bonnie will attempt to force it open, and flashing your light at him will cause the door to close. Leave it open for too long, and I bet you can guess what'll happen. Moving back to your desk is where Chica will attack. Chica herself doesn't kill you, but she can be a pain in the ass if you're not ready for her. Right before the hour is about to turn, she'll reach onto your desk to pause your clock. Click her and she'll leave, but you have to be fast. If she manages to pause your clock, you'll have to complete that hour again, making the overall night last longer. This is honestly a mechanic I think is pretty damn interesting. While yes, it's annoying if you don't catch her, the way to beat her is easy enough that it isn't bullshit to deal with. Easy mechanic with a horrific consequence. I love it. Moving to your window is where Foxy and Ann are. Sadly, once again, both do the exact same thing. Occasionally, they'll pound on your window, which is now boarded up by metal bars. All you have to do is hold your flashlight on them and they'll eventually leave. Very basic. Once again, literally identical to Bonnie, just in a different location. Shine your flashlight, they leave. The final threat is Freddy, who, once again, like Chica, can't kill you by himself, but is a big annoyance. Occasionally, he'll jump in front of your face and block your view. You'll have to spam the spacebar to pull him off you and dropkick him through a chain link fence. But after that, those are all the threats. If you can manage to hold off long enough, you'll enter one last cutscene, albeit not as grandiose as the true endings. You manage to escape the grasp of the souls. As you attempt to pass on, you look back and see the souls desperately trying to pull you back into the darkness. Escaping the souls, leaving them behind to suffer forever. You move on to the afterlife and finally fucking die. So yeah, very stark contrast between the 2 endings. I actually felt like there was a major difference, unlike in most FNAF games, which I can definitely appreciate. But with that, as far as I'm aware, that's all Animatronic Memories has to offer. Overall, I think Animatronic Memories is an enjoyable experience. I only got one ending in my playthrough, and I probably wouldn't want to get the other. Not because I don't want to see it, but because of how lackluster the gameplay loop is. With there really only being 2 mechanics, closing doors and shocking the puppet, I don't want to discourage anyone from giving this game a try. It's fun to play, it's an engaging story that's easy to follow, and that is something I can definitely appreciate. A plot twist is a literary technique that introduces a radical change in the direction or expected outcome of the plot in a work of fiction. Now tell me, can you think of a horror game that pulls off an insane twist? Maybe Resident Evil 8 in its crazy twist comes to mind. Now let me ask you another question. Can you name a FNAF game with a crazy twist? A twist so cool you have to sit back and think, wow, that was pretty sick. The game I'll be covering today has one of those twists, and I'm incredibly excited to share with you the amazing experience I had while playing Showman's The Awakening. For those of you already familiar with this game, you may know that it actually has a game that came before it. Kinda. Years ago, the same developer released a game called Phobia: The Awakening, using the Wiggles as inspiration for the characters. Well, turns out the dev wanted to remake their game using their own original characters to continue the story, so now here we are with Showman's. This may lead you to ask the question, if I've already played Phobia, is there even a point to playing Showman's? And trust me, this is a question I've asked myself. Originally, I saw people asking me to play Showman's. I played Phobia on my second channel, Dxtr Black, not knowing at the time that Showman's was a thing, learning soon after the first episode went up that it was in fact a thing. So I questioned, does it even bother to play it? Well, recently I've made the decision to do exactly that and give Showman's a try. And let's just say, if you've played Phobia, play Showmans. It's everything Phobia is and more. So join me as we quake our asses into Showmans: The Awakening. In Showmans, we play as a guy named Mark Ward, an employee of Showman's Pizza Place. And in night 1, we're introduced to 2 of the animatronics that will be trying to insert their fingers into orifices we'd really prefer they keep their grubby little hands away from. But before we can talk about them, we should talk about the tools at our disposal. Something really interesting you'll notice about the office is that you're able to look everywhere. Up, down, left, right, behind you, below you. It's actually really cool. It's really the first thing I noticed jumping into the game. The reason for this is actually because Showmans wasn't created in ClickTeam Fusion like most FNAF games are. Instead, it was created in Blender, which is what most FNAF games use to model their characters, and is something I also had no idea could be used to program a game. So that was pretty cool learning for the first time. Anyways, you'll see 2 large hallways on your left and right, which you can light up using buttons on your desk. In front of you is this lady. Hey, hottie. She's not hot, I'm not even gonna lie, she's not even bad. Who we'll be talking about later in the video. And if you look behind you, you'll be able to see the clock where you can tell how much longer of the night you have to get through. Oh yeah, and of course, there's cameras, because it really wouldn't be a FNAF game without those. With that out of the way, now we can talk about the first 2 threats this game introduces, Johnny and Harry. Now I know, those names aren't very normal sounding when thinking in terms of Five Nights at Freddy's, when usually we're having names so utterly stupid you'd be forced to think they were a fictional character. But no, these 2 are still robots, and you still cannot have intercourse with them, so please remove all thoughts of that nature from your head for the remainder of this video. Johnny and Harry both start from the show stage and do the exact same thing. Johnny will move through the cameras to your right hallway, and Harry will move through your left hallway, where they will then enter what I'm going to be calling their attack mode. During their attack mode, they have 5 phases. Each phase has a sound cue, and it's important that you're listening for them. With each phase, they'll move closer and closer towards your office, with the final phase having them walk up to you. Obviously, you can check their distance by flashing the light at them, and by doing so, you will also temporarily stun them in place. However, I would highly recommend you don't turn the lights on when they're in the hall, as I personally feel it's much more efficient to just let them attack you so they can piss off as fast as possible. Every time Johnny or Harry enters a new phase, their eyes will glow for a short time after their sound cue plays. So when you hear it, you can just turn in the direction to double check that they've moved. On these earlier nights, you really don't have to be super careful with them. Flashing lights and not counting sound cues isn't really important since they're your only threats. So I'll get into a bit of a better strategy for them later on. However, once they enter your office, you'll have to quickly throw on a spare mask to fool them into walking away, just like the animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's 2. And that's really it. Night 1 is pretty damn easy, really just introducing the basics needed to understand 2 very important mechanics. After beating Night 1, we see a cutscene, something that was not originally in Phobia. In it, we meet with the founder of Showmans, Jason Baker. He confirms with us that only Johnny and Harry were active on our shift, and we confirm. Apparently, this should not be happening, and it's a known issue. So that's good at least. Jason tells us that a previous employee mentioned more characters moving, which in all honesty doesn't bode well for my anus, given the fact we still have 5 more nights of this to deal with. But we get our things and go home for the night, only to come back to work in the morning. Night 2 introduces 2 new animatronics, and let me tell you, this is where the game starts to show how much of a pain in the dick it's about to become. The first character we should talk about is the fine shite sitting in front of us, Peggy. Peggy reminds me a lot of the scrapped animatronics from Five Nights at Freddy's Pizzeria Simulator, just given the fact of the way she moves subtly like them. She also reminds me a lot of what Anissa's husband really doesn't want her to do to him. Whenever you're not looking at her, whether that be checking on the cameras, looking at the hallways, or checking the clock behind you, Peggy has a chance to advance phases. You'll be able to see her start by looking down and slowly transfer through the phases until she's ready to attack. In order to reset her, all you have to do is flip the breaker switch on your desk to shock her and she'll reset. But be careful not to just spam this lever over and over, because every time you shock her, she becomes more aggressive, leading to the end of nights becoming incredibly stressful due to how fast she'll be attacking you. Cap'n Cackle is the other menace introduced on night 2. He is this game's Foxy. If you couldn't tell by looking at him, he's a pirate, just like Foxy. Also, he looks like he's cracked out of his fucking mind. Zooted to the fucking moon. Seriously, look at this geeked out motherfucker. Holy shit, bro hasn't slept in 18 days. Look at those eye bags. What the hell happened? Stop looking at me, dude. Tell me that guy doesn't smoke crystal meth. Look at those fucking eyes. What are you doing? Hey. That's the face I make when I'm about to eat ass, bro. Anyways, similar to Foxy, he'll have several phases on camera 6. Watching him will slow his progression and even in some cases make him go backwards. If he happens to leave camera 6, he doesn't do exactly what Foxy does. Instead, he'll just start moving through your cameras like any other character would, albeit very quickly. If you manage to stare at him in one of those other cameras, he will go back to camera 6 where you can continue oogling at him to make him stay put. Both Peggy and Cap and Cackle work very well together, and the same goes for Johnny and Harry. We have 2 other central characters left to introduce, and you'll notice that those 2 also work very well in tandem with one another. This is something I need to give this game praise for. It is so incredibly good at introducing new mechanics in a way that's stressful, yet engaging and fun. You introduce Peggy, a character that moves when you don't look at her, and Cap and Cackle, another character who moves when you're not looking at him. And because these 2 characters are in different places, it forces you to learn how to balance them together. God, it's so fucking cool. Similar to last night, this night also has a cutscene after completion. In it, we're seen walking to the exit of the building. We hear a noise and quickly turn around to see an unknown animatronic staring back at us. It stares for a while before turning around and walking away. This is a character we haven't yet seen. Even the characters we'll be talking about on later nights can be seen on the cameras all the time, but this one can't. Keep him in the back of your head as he'll become important later. For now, let's move on to Night 3. Night 3 only introduces one character, but it also introduces another incredibly important mechanic, that being your vents. The animatronic introduced on Night 3 is Tony the Chef. He will enter your vents. You'll notice on your cameras that you have 3 camera vents. Tony can enter 2 of them, those being either camera 12 or camera 11. In these vents, he will have multiple phases he will move through before attempting to enter your office. With each movement, a very quiet sound cue will play, a stark contrast to Phobia where the sound cue was very noticeable. By double-clicking on a vent cam, you can lock the vent. Locking a vent uses no power because the game has no power to begin with. Praise God. Once a vent is closed, you can keep it closed as long as you'd like, with no consequences. The only downside is that you can only close one vent at a time. So this night really isn't all too different from Night 2. Well, now's the time when I want to talk about sound cue counting with Johnny and Harry, as it's this night where you'll probably want to start getting used to doing that. As I mentioned earlier, Johnny and Harry each have 5 different phases in your hallway. The first is when they initially enter the hallway. You'll be able to tell because you can see their eyes in the hallway for a brief moment, and because you'll be able to hear their big ol' feet stomping around, kind of like I want Toy Chica to stomp on my testicles. Once one of them enters your hallway, you can stop checking on them and focus on listening. Start a mental count of 3 in your head. All sounds in this game are directional, so that really helps. Whenever you hear footsteps on either side of you, decrease that side's number by 1. Once the counter reaches 0, you know that the next time you hear footsteps from that side is when they'll walk into your office to attack. Okay, 4 left, or 3 till he's at the last stage. 2 left until he hits door. Okay, 1 more. And he's at the line. He's walking the thin line. 1 more. I want to see how close I can cut it. Hi. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that. Doing this while they're both attacking you at the same time can get a little overwhelming, and on later nights they do like to attack together a lot. But if you can nail this counting strategy, they really shouldn't be too much of an issue. After completing Night 3, we get to watch another lovely cutscene. In it, we're looking through the factory for who the fuck knows what. We open a crate and find a Johnny plush inside. Seeing this toy seems to trigger some primal instinct in us, and we pass the fuck out. Honestly, bro, probably not the greatest place to lose consciousness, I'm not even gonna front. We awake in another room, only to look up and see Showman. Scared as shit, we wake up from our slumber only to realize it was a short dream we had after we had passed out. There is clearly something mentally wrong with our dear beloved Mark. We just have to figure out what it is. Night 4 introduces the man himself, Showman. Showman works in perfect tandem with Tony, also attacking your vents. Although, unlike Tony, Showman can only attack your camera 13 vent. However, he also fucking loves to do this at the same time that Tony is jumping penis first into your vents. Showman only has 3 phases in the vent before attacking, so notably faster than Tony. So while both of them are attacking your vent, you really have to be counting their positions to figure out whose vent you need to close first, because once again, you can only have one closed at a time. If one of those fuckers get into your office, they're gonna crank that soldier boy and clock you in the jaw. I'm just gonna go ahead and put this on and hope to God. Okay, so it didn't work. I couldn't tell which one was closer, bro. I thought the guy I had blocked off was closer. I couldn't tell. All in all, each character is incredibly easy to deal with, but because of how perfectly they all work together, it can lead to an incredibly stressful experience trying to play against all of them at the same time. However, never at any point throughout my playthrough did I feel like this game was unfair or that RNG was too much of a factor. This game, dare I say it, might have borderline perfect video game balancing. After completing night 4, of course, we get another cutscene. This one taking place before we go to work for the night. Before we enter our car, we get a call from Jason, telling us not to come in to work tonight. He says things are getting too dangerous and that it would be unsafe for us to go through our shift. We agree to not go in tonight, except the plot twist is that I fucking lied and we're gonna go in anyways, because we hate authority like a 16-year-old white boy from the suburbs. On night 5, we get a call from the phone guy, and let me tell you, he is absolutely pissed that we decided to come in for the night. He explains that anything in that building that moves will be demolished in the morning. He tells us to do whatever it is we're trying to do and get out, because they're not going to send anyone into the building to get us out. Other than that, Night 5 is exactly what you'd think it is, just a much more difficult version of Night 4, really testing your reflexes and especially your nerve control. But on this night is when I have to bring up really the only problem I have with this game. Volume. This game is actually the loudest fucking game on planet Earth. Holy shit. Everything makes noise, and it makes a damn lot of it at that. There are typically ambient sounds in FNAF games, but for the love of God, this game plays intense music throughout most of the night, and it is loud as dick and balls. Want to hear the best part? As you get closer and closer to 6 a.m., the music adds more components and gets even fucking louder! This really doesn't help when so much of my strategy revolved around listening to sound cues. It's fucking crazy just how loud this game is! Now granted, was this something that was intended? Most definitely. And I'm not even saying that it's a bad thing, because obviously, inherently, it isn't. I was still able to beat the game just fine, and I feel like most other people would be able to beat it just fine as well. But this is something I couldn't not talk about. I love this game, but of course I'm not going to always be able to glaze everything I see, and I think this is truly the only flaw this game has. But hey, who gives a fuck about what I think? Let's move on to the cutscene, baby. Let me just say, I love this cutscene. I think everything about it is great. The pacing, the acting, everything is just so good that I don't want to ruin it by just talking about it. I'd much rather just show you.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, put your hands together for our birthday boy! Just leave me alone. Please.
Well, god damn. We really should have listened and not come back, huh? So, it's safe to say that our pal Mark really got fucked here. Something I think is actually really cool. It's fairly common for FNAF games to have a character die in them, most commonly a phone guy, but to actually see it like this is just awesome. Going into night 6, we actually get a cutscene before the night happens rather than after it. In it, we play as the phone guy going into the building to get Mark. After a bit of searching, we find him, and once again, I think it'll just sit much better with you if you just watch it for yourself.
Mark? Is that you?
You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You shouldn't have went in there, bro. You should have done that shit. Oh, fuck.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
What do I do? Keep yourself together.
Are you fucking me? That's right. Turns out Mark isn't dead, but is just kind of possessed. Phone guy, or his real name, Matthew, runs back to the office with Mark on the pursuit, and night 6 begins. Night 6 consists of 4 threats, 2 of which we've already covered, Cap and Cackle and Peggy. However, you'll immediately notice that they both look pretty fucked up. Why is this? Well, turns out by demolish the animatronics, they really meant set the whole fucking building on fire. Because once again, it wouldn't be a FNAF game without a fire, right? Oh yeah, and of course, they are way more aggressive. Another thing you'll notice immediately is that we're stuck with the flashlight instead of the building lights. And let me tell you, as I'm sure you can already see, it is dark as fucking shit in this goddamn building with no lights. Of course, your flashlight has power, so you'll have to use it sparingly. You'll need to use it to check the hallways and to even be able to see Peggy in front of you. This honestly adds a whole new level of fear to this game, mainly with Peggy. I never got very good at telling when she switched positions, and to now have it where I can't even naturally see her just added a whole new fear factor, and I love it. The other 2 threats are the animatronic we saw in the post-night 2 cutscene, dubbed The Figure, and Mark himself, which is honestly one of the coolest twists I've ever seen. Having the character you've been playing as the whole time flip like this, it's insane. It's honestly one of the coolest things I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. Let's start with Mark. Mark works the same as Harry and Johnny, except I feel like he's even easier. He can attack from either of the 2 halls, and unlike Johnny and Harry, you cannot see his eyes. He's also much, much quieter. The reason I think he's easier? Well, you don't have to do any mental counting to tell when he's going to attack, as he has a totally unique sound cue for when he enters your office. So as long as you've got fast reflexes, it's really just a game of waiting to hear the sound cue and putting on the mask. The final new threat on this night is, of course, the Figure. He takes the place of Tony and Showman attacking your vents. He can attack any of the 3 you have, since there won't be 2 characters going for the vents at the same time. Again, I honestly feel like this is easier than Tony and Showman. Of course, the Figure is fucking light speed fast when choosing and climbing through vents, so as long as you've got fast reflexes, it really shouldn't be too much of a challenge. Ironically enough, the main challenge I had with this night was not the 2 new threats, but the 2 returning threats, Peggy and Cap and Cackle. Again, these 2 have the best synergy out of any of the characters in this game, so bringing them back for night 6 was a no-brainer. Really, the actual problem for me was Peggy. The sheer speed at which she moves is enough to make you shit in your britches. And nearing the end of the night, she will be moving at a speed Usain Bolt would be creaming his pants over. But if you can control your nerves for long enough, you'll complete night 6 and move on to the post-night cutscene. Matthew runs as fast as he can to the exit, only to find it locked. Turning around, we see Mark slowly creeping up on us like the booty cheek creep freak. The screen cuts to black, and we're left with only the screams of Matthew echoing throughout the pizzeria, and Showman's The Awakening comes to a close. Kind of. We're not exactly done just yet. There's actually 6 other secrets this game has to offer, that being the secret tapes. On each night, you will be able to find one of these tapes and play them later. On night 1, if you check camera 9, you'll be able to see a tape on the shelf in the top left corner. Night 2's tape is located in one of the drawers in your office. Night 3's tape is located on camera 3 on a shelf in the bottom left corner. Night 4's tape is located on camera 2 at the top of the screen. Night 5's tape is located on camera 5 on a high shelf in the middle of the camera, and Night 6 tape is conveniently located directly in front of you on the desk. Hey there, post-scripting Deku here. Turns out I'm fucking wrong. These are not the locations of the tapes on every night. Turns out every single night, besides the 6th one, has a random location for each tape, each being on a different camera. This was just the order that I had. So, yeah. Sorry about that. These tapes, as I'm sure you could have guessed, go over some extra bits of lore to help us piece together the story. And this is the part of the video where I say, I'm very sorry guys, I'm terrible at talking about story, but I'm going to try my best here. Tape 1 shows all of the characters on stage singing the happy birthday song to a kid whose name isn't explicitly said. We can see by the date of the tape that this takes place in 1995. Tape 2 seems to be a sort of log from Jason, explaining his reasoning for why he believes the characters are acting so hostile. Originally, when they were first being built, they attempted to add an advanced facial recognition system that would allow the characters to actually see and think for themselves. Although the system never ended up working as intended, they wiped the idea from their systems. Well, guess what, fucker? Turns out they really didn't, and Jason seems to think that this is the reason the characters are acting the way they are. Jason makes a brief mention of an unnamed him and questions if one of his employees are potentially tampering with the characters. I'm guessing that him is referring to either Mark or the figure. Tape 3 shows 2 guys working on Tony. They're talking about how these robots should be scrapped because of how old they are, and then the guy in the back says a sentence that I literally cannot for the fucking life of me decipher. Like many other things in this game, the static that plays during these cutscenes is so fucking loud I can't hear anything except it. I'll play what he says here, and if any of you guys can decipher it, please let me know in the comments.
That company's been up in deals with recently.
Well, why?
Tape 4 is one of my favorites. It really gives off the FNAF VHS style that I really like. A maintenance worker is running a test on Cap'n Cackle. It doesn't quite go as planned as he bugs out, so they restart him and then get attacked. Afterwards, showing the lifeless corpse of the employee laying on the floor in front of Cap'n Cackle. It's just such an unnerving moment to see this in person. Usually when it comes to FNAF games and death, you don't see it. So seeing it in a game like this is really unnerving, and it adds a sort of realism to the actual events that are taking place. Tape 5 is probably my favorite of all the tapes, being the most terrifying in my opinion. In it, we're in the perspective of what sounds like a young girl. Hiding under a table, we hear a scream from another room. Shortly after, Johnny walks into the room and starts to look around. The girl accidentally makes a noise, and when she looks back up, Johnny is staring at her. And he quickly goes for the kill. This is such a fucking horrific and terrifying situation to think about being in, and I think that's why I like it so much. Just imagining being in the same situation makes my hair stand. Tape number 6 is an odd one. We appear to be being spoken to by the figure. He tells us that the birthday we saw earlier was Timmy's 12th birthday. He had 2 of his friends with him that day, and it was a party made specifically for him. Then we see 3 drawings of his friends, all of them sad. The figure appears in front of us and slowly glances up before the tape ends. Again, as I've previously stated, lore analysis is not my strong suit at all, so I really can't even begin to imagine what anything here means. I know robots mad and robots kill, and I think that is neat enough. Overall, Showman's The Awakening is such a big step up from Phobia, and while I still do love that game, I think I love Showman's even more. Amazing graphical upgrades, fantastic cutscenes, and a gameplay loop that's so fun, difficult, yet still not frustrating. This game really has it all, and I truly think it's a fantastic game to play if you're at all interested in horror games. Even if you're not a huge Five Nights at Freddy's fan, I still think you should give it a try. 2025 has been a crazy year for Five Nights at Freddy's fan games so far. We've had incredible titles such as Banshee, Five Nights at Frederick's, and Freddy's Reanimated. It's honestly incredible to see how much this community is thriving after 11 years of the original game's release. Somehow, people are still able to take the original concept and add new and unique experiences to it, and are somehow able to retell the same story in a way that's interesting every single time. It really goes to show just how much love this community has for the original source material. Today, we're going to be looking at one of the newest FNAF fan games to release, one that has built up a lot of hype and certainly lived up to it, with mechanics so unique that I've never seen before. So join me today as we dive into the twisted world of Locked at Freddy's. Locked at Freddy's begins with an opening cutscene. We introduce ourselves as Elliot Woods, and we begin to tell the story of the most terrorizing night of our entire lives, starting with us taking a job offer at Freddy Fazbear's as a security job. When we pull up to the building, we notice a purple car parked outside. Thinking nothing of it, we walk inside the building and get knocked out by a man in a bunny suit. Wake up. Oh shit! So this is about to be cool. Oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? We wake up inside of a Springlock suit. By completing a quick time-based minigame, we escape certain death, only to realize the real amount of trouble we're actually in. The man who attacked us, presumably William Afton, begins talking to us through the intercom system. He tells us what we're in, and that if we can survive until 6 a.m., we might get, quote, something special. I'm hoping it's that rabbit deer. Oh, Jesus Christ. And with that, the night begins. Something we need to immediately get out of the way is that this game, technically speaking, only has one night. However, the way a normal FNAF game would call a night, Locked at Freddy's calls an hour. So each hour of the night basically acts as its own night. I made that sound way more complicated than it actually is, but who cares? Let's start by talking about the main mechanic that you're going to be aware of, that being the Springlock suit attached to your bones. Whenever you move in this game, that meaning looking from side to side, a small indicator bar in the bottom left corner will detect your movement. If it fills up all the way to the top, you will die. At first, I thought this was going to be the most devastating mechanic ever introduced into any FNAF game ever. However, during my playthrough, I figured out how it actually works. This bar increases based on how much X-axis movement your mouse has. So if you slowly turn from one side of the office to another, it will increase very quickly. However, if you were to say, whip your mouse to one side of the screen really fast so that the screen has to catch up to your mouse's position, since you didn't move your mouse for very long, the bar will not increase very much at all. So this is definitely the route to go. Two more interesting mechanics that go along with the Springlock suit. First, when you open the camera, the bar will pause wherever it's at. This means if your bar is halfway increased and you open the camera, even though your player isn't moving, the bar will not decrease like it usually does when you're not moving. And only once you pull the camera down will it begin to decrease. The final pretty poopy mechanic the Springlock suit brings takes place when you interact with the doors. The doors in this game work the same as the doors in FNAF 4. That being, you have to manually hold them closed. There is also a big lever next to the door you can pull to shine a light in the hall. Now, this final amazing and not ass-clenching mechanic has everything to do with interacting with these two very important pieces of the game. If you interact with either the light lever or the door itself whilst your movement bar is yellow, you will be entered into the Springlock minigame from the beginning of the game, and if you fail it, you lose. Now, completing this minigame isn't difficult. What's so annoying about having to do it is knowing that if you're needing to close the door, you probably don't have time to sit and do a minigame. Is this mechanic cool? Yes, I think it is. but that doesn't stop it from making me want to ride a bike with no seat. Now, with that out of the way, we can actually talk about the first threat this game introduces. Bonnie. What? Oh God, oh God. Why is he wearing a hat? Who gave him the fucking hat? Oh my God, look at how fast that power goes down. Of course, he's probably the most basic character of the roster, but that's typically how he is, and that's just how we like him. I'm kind of breathable a little bit. Oh my God, dude, what's wrong with me? Bonnie will quietly make his way to your left door, and let me be clear, him not making noise is a big deal, as sound cues are going to be very important throughout this game. Once Bonnie reaches your door, all you have to do is hold it closed. You will hear him bang on the door and then start breathing really hard like your mom does when she walks up a flight of stairs at a below reasonable pace. Once he starts breathing, you're free to let go of the door. However, if you ever turn the light on while he's at the door breathing, you will get eviscerated. After completing 12 a.m., 1 a.m. will begin, because that's how time works. Insane that I have to explain this to you. During the chat with William, he explains how we're the second person to be in this game. When asked who the first is, William responds that his name was Michael, and that he's currently in the back room stuffed inside of a suit. Some of the most brutal stuff, let me tell you. But before we can ask any more questions, he tells us that someone new is activating and the hour really begins. This hour introduces Chica, who does not act the same as Bonnie in the slightest, which is honestly really nice to see. Chica, of course, attacks your right door, except she actually is much more aggressive. Much more of a dom, which I would usually be chill with, except unfortunately for me, this is the ugly Chica, not bad bitch toy Chica. Once Chica gets to your door, unlike Bonnie, she is actually kind enough to leave us a sound cue. When you hear it, you will need to hold the door closed. She will then start pounding on it like your mom pounds down Twinkies. Whenever you hear the pounding stop, you must quickly open the cameras and use the alarm button I haven't mentioned so far. When you use the alarm button, an alarm will play. Who would have thought? And it will go off for 10 seconds. Use this once Chica stops banging to scare her away from your office. It doesn't matter which camera you use it on either, so that's really fortunate for us, the player. This game will eventually become pretty intense, and that will become more apparent once you notice how different each character really is. During the next phone call, William tells us the story of the children, how he murdered all 5 of them and placed their bodies into the suits so that the police wouldn't find them, explaining that the company shut down because of this and that he got away with it. He mentioned that there was still one single thing that could put a wrench in his plans, but he says he locked her in a box. I want you to keep this line in mind, as it will become very important later. For now, we have to talk about a new threat. This new threat is Foxy, a character I honestly thought was going to be a whole lot worse than he actually was. Foxy does exactly what you think he does. He has multiple stages he will move through in Pirate's Cove before charging at your door. This time around, however, he can attack either side, needing you to rely on sound cues to figure out which side he'll try to hit. Once you know which side he's on, all you have to do is hold the door closed. When you hear him bang on it, quickly turn the light on to scare him away from the door and he'll run back to Pirate's Cove like a little piss baby. Something really good to note about Foxy is that he really doesn't demand your attention at all, and that was a surprise to me. Unlike in FNAF 1, where watching Foxy on the camera stalls him, he will move at the same rate whether you're looking at him or not in this game. So all you really have to do is listen out for his sound cue and you'll be well in the clear. Just hope he doesn't attack when Bonnie is breathing, because if he does, then say goodbye to your anus because you're not getting it back. During the hour 4 phone call, Elliot calls William out for being an idiot, because what does killing 5 kids do for anyone? William turns into a piss baby and pulls some pain levels of, "You don't know the kind of pain I've been through," emo antagonist. William says he lost everything, and that the most important thing in his life got taken away. Knowing the FNAF lore, he's probably referring to his daughter. When Elliot asks how killing children fixes that, William deflects and the hour begins. Freddy is the next threat introduced. Freddy, of course, has to introduce my least favorite mechanic of all time. Occasionally, throughout the night, Freddy will laugh as loud as he possibly can like the asshole at the movie theater. When he does, do you want to take a wild stab at what you have to do? If you said find him on the fucking cameras, you'd be right, god damn it! Once you find Freddy on the cameras, you will have to play the alarm on whichever camera he is at, which will make him leave. But of course, as I'm sure you could have guessed, this does bring up another issue. Now we have two characters that make use of the same mechanic, and this mechanic has a very long 10-second cooldown. So let's imagine a sick and twisted scenario where Freddy does a little giggle. Okay, it's time to go look for him. So you do exactly that. Just then, the moment you press the alarm button, Chica starts blowing up your door's asshole like the 4th of July. Well, shit. Let's hope Chica takes a long time to start pounding on my glass, because otherwise she's gonna start pounding on my ass. Luckily for us, however, it does appear this was thought about while the game was being designed, because after Chica finishes pounding on your door, she usually won't start pounding on your window for a couple seconds. And in all honesty, there's nothing more satisfying in this game than using the alarm to take care of Freddy and Chica at the same time. Two birds, one stone type shit. The 4 a.m. phone call has William turn into the Joker, talking about a brand new toy he's created in the workshop. Says he made it specifically for occasions like this. What could he be talking about, I hear you ask? Great question, dear, honest, innocent, and defenseless viewer. Allow me to answer that burning question for you. Going into the workshop where you can find the corpse of Michael, Chip will jump onto the camera. Literally, this motherfucker got hops. Kinda like your mom in the drive-thru at Taco Bell. Seriously, you tell her, vamos a Taco Bell y pidamos todo, and she starts hopping. You wanna take a solid guess as to what this guy introduces? If you said my second least favorite mechanic, ding ding ding, you'd be exactly right. Chip introduces a music box mechanic. If you're not winding it throughout the night, he'll insert his entire forearm inside of you. But Chip is an animal, and I know a lot of you guys are furries, so you might actually enjoy that. Freaks. You're all freaks. Freaks! During the hour 5 chat, we call William a bitch. We tell him he's hiding from us. And when we say that, he gets an idea that we're not going to be a huge fan of. Nothing new is added during this hour, except I just lied straight to your face. Within the first minute of the hour, you can hear a car pulling up outside of the building, and William himself enters. The fuck was that horn? Who's this car I'm hearing? Is he here? He's already here. The yellow rabbit can come from any side. Close the door and wait for it to leave. Every knock the door affects the spring locks. If you hear the sound of the wind-up toy, prepare for an attack. What? That's right. The final threat introduced is William himself in the spring lock costume, who, spoiler alert, is the guy that knocked us out at the beginning of the game. I know, crazy, hard to believe, right? So let's ask ourselves, is his mechanic going to be fun? Well, it's actually pretty unmemorable, honestly. William will make his way to either one of your doors at random. When he arrives, he will make a sound cue to let you know he's there. How kind! Once he's at your door, all you have to do is hold it closed and he'll give it that Chica treatment, pounding on it by slapping it with his big fat stupid balls. However, something a little bit different from Chica is that his big fat stupid balls are so powerful that they will actually cause your spring lock meter to increase every time he bangs on the door. And while sure, that may sound cool, but due to the fact that you won't be moving your mouse during this because it's sitting on the door holding it closed, it really only serves to look cool and make William feel intimidating way more than it serves to actually be a mechanic. But that's about it. Beat this night and you're home free. Oh wait. Shit. William, what are you doing here? Hey, buddy, stay back. You stink like shit. Hey, don't you take one more step. Hey, don't you do it.
Now, you'll be trapped here forever. But I am you. I see you in the darkness.
What the fuck? So yeah, we got killed by William even though we won, and were stuffed into the Chip suit, which is clearly what he meant when he said he made Chip specifically for situations like this. Soon after, we're given the message, you can fix everything, find castle, with a crayon drawing of a castle shown. This is honestly really appreciated. I personally have no problem with the true ending of a game being a little out of the way. as long as it doesn't require me to repeat a massive section of the game, if not the entire game all over again. Secret of the fucking Mimic! So this game actually giving us a massive hint on how to find it is actually really refreshing. Going back to 5 AM, if you go to camera 5 and click on the castle drawing, you will be thrown into a night minigame. And now I get to talk about it because this minigame was actually pretty fun. Upon loading into the minigame, you will learn the two most important mechanics: attacking and not attacking. Whenever you attack, you will swing a little lance, and whenever you don't attack and are moving, your curse meter will go up. If your curse meter increases too high, it will turn yellow and you won't be able to attack. Does this remind you of something? Because it should, as it's literally a metaphor as to what we're going through. We are in a suit, but instead of it being armor, it's a spring lock. Whenever we move, our danger increases and prevents us from using our only means of defense. And spoiler alert, the rest of this minigame is a metaphor as well. Very early on, we walk past a big purple locked door. Obviously, we'll have to come back to this eventually, so keep it in mind. Continuing to travel, we enter a room with our first boss battle. Being unable to fight this one, it's completely about not being seen. Hide behind pillars as he passes so that we aren't noticed. At the end of the hall, we see a child locked inside of a cage, and it's our job to free them. We see it's locked via a code, and we have to count the numbers of each colored balloon to get it. Don't question it, it's a FNAF game, it's weird, it's dumb, whatever, just move on. Afterwards, getting the key to the cage and freeing the child. This obviously being a metaphor for saving one of the missing children. The next boss we face is a bit more difficult, Brute. He has a shield and we can only strike when it's down. This weird, sad-looking bunny cloud above our head will occasionally take a piss and we have to dodge the stream. Meanwhile, hentai tentacles will occasionally come up from the ground. Dodging these is actually kind of difficult, as the way they move is completely random, so this fight was a bit frustrating. After beating Brute, we get another key and save another kid. We continue to explore, finding a massive furnace. You should know by now, if you're familiar with my channel, that pretty much nothing is an accident, so you know this will almost certainly be important later. The next boss we face is the Mechanism. He slides across the ceiling and will shoot homing missiles at you, all the while whipping a laser around that you have to dodge as well. Honestly, this fight looks a lot more intimidating than it actually is. After beating him, bingo was his name-o, another key drops. The final boss we go up against is the Executioner. This guy has got a massive axe, or a hammer, I can't really tell. When he slams it on the ground, it leaves a shockwave behind that you have to dodge. The Piss Goblin is back up in the sky, and the hentai tentacles make a return as well. Honestly, this is probably the easiest of the boss fights. It just takes the longest because this guy has a lot of health. After beating him, he drops the final key and we can leave. However, I would highly recommend you don't leave, because if you want to get the true ending, we have something else to do. If you take all of the keys we've collected so far and take them back to the furnace, you can melt them together into a single purple key. Then, using this key, you can go all the way back to the start where the purple door was, and now you can unlock it, because that's how a door and a key work. Heading inside, we find a box, the same box William mentioned putting her inside of. The box opens, and the marionette reveals herself. She thanks us for setting her free and says that it's now her job to set us free. We need to survive until 6 AM. Now, if we complete night 6 one more time, near the end of the night, the marionette will appear in our office and we get one last cutscene. The marionette takes off our suit and we go to take revenge on William once and for all. Hello! Don't be afraid of me. I will save you. Whoa, whoa, bitch! I took off your suit. You are free. We will take revenge on him. Oh. A secret room. What the heck, bro? Oh shit! Oh. A word? Oh, word. Oh shit, where'd he just go to? All alone in the darkness. Oh, hello. Oh yeah, I'd be fucking shitting myself, bro. We are already here. We are waiting for you. Oh shit. Whoa, what the hell? Oh damn. Oh damn. Dude, yuck. Oh shit, what the fuck? It's time to end this. Attack, fucking FNAF assemble type shit. Oh, his spring locks. Oh my god. Oh shit. Oh shit, his spring locks, they're locking up, bro. Oh. Oh shit. There he goes. Holy fuck. Oh damn. What the fuck? Hell yeah, shut his ass down, bro. Now you will be locked here. Forever. What the fuck? And there we have it. An ending where we survive and all the kids can finally rest. Locked at Freddy's tells its story in a way that feels like a personal confession. A night one man survived and isn't entirely sure how. The whole thing is framed around Elliot Woods, a guy who moved to Hurricane and took the first job he could find because he needed money. And unfortunately for him, that job happened to be at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, which is already a red flag in this universe. But the important detail here, something a lot of players miss, is that Elliot never actually becomes a night guard. He never makes it to the office. He never even starts his job. He's attacked the moment he walks inside. A man in a rabbit suit, clearly William Afton, kidnaps him, drags him off screen, and forces him into a spring lock suit. Not a costume, not a mascot, a torture device. You're waking up inside a machine built to kill you if you breathe wrong. And that's where the story really begins. Not as an employee, but as a victim William chose for reasons we don't fully know. And for the entire game, William is basically treating this situation like a twisted interview. He's watching Elliot, studying him, testing how long a person can last when trapped inside a spring lock coffin. The animatronics aren't really the point. They're just environmental hazards William unleashes to make the test harder. He talks to you through an intercom all night, and this is where we get the real story. William admits everything. He killed 5 children, he hid the bodies in the suits, he shut down the location, and he never got caught. But the part that actually matters, the part Locked at Freddy's is built around, is the one thing that did scare him: the marionette. He says there was one single thing that could ruin all of his plans, something strong enough to fight back, and he said he'd locked her in a box. That's the core conflict of this game. The night isn't just William tormenting Elliot, it's William making sure the marionette stays powerless. Every time he talks, you can hear how confident he is. He's got Elliot trapped. He's killed before, and he thinks this is all going according to plan. But something changes as the night progresses. When Elliot pushes back, asks why murdering children fixes anything, William actually loses composure. He starts ranting about loss and how he had something important taken from him. There's a reason people compare this game's version of William to Saw's Jigsaw. This isn't William in the middle of the FNAF timeline. This is William trying to prove something, trying to justify his pain by putting someone else through it. And that's why he comes to the restaurant at 5 a.m. He's not coming to kill Elliot because he's winning. He's coming because he wants the ending to be personal. He kills him, stuffs him into the chip suit, and considers the night finished. Another victim contained, another spirit silenced, another threat buried before it can become a problem. But the moment Elliot dies, the entire story flips, because that's when the children finally make contact. The message, "Find Castle," isn't just a clue. It's the kids reaching out. It's the souls William tried to control doing the one thing he never prepared for, fighting back from inside his own game. And the Cursed Night minigame is their language, their world. It's not literal, it's symbolic. It's Elliot navigating a space built out of memories and trauma the kids experienced and helping them break down the barriers William left behind. Every boss you defeat represents another spirit being freed. Every key you collect is a child William tried to silence, locking them away. The furnace is where you merge them, giving them the strength they need to unlock the one door William never wanted opened: the box. And inside that box is one entity who can actually challenge him: the marionette, freed not by the police, not by Henry, not by the spirits, but by Elliot, the victim William assumed wouldn't survive 6 hours. She thanks him, she understands what William did to him, and she chooses to help. That ending scene, the puppet removing the suit and freeing Elliot from the spring locks, is the first time in the entire game that Elliot has any control over what's happening to him. He's no longer one more body in a suit, he's a survivor. And with the spirits awakened, the puppet free, and William still in the building, the true ending leaves us with the moment William has always feared. For once, he's not the hunter. Elliot is. Locked at Freddy's ends right where William's downfall begins, with the victim standing up, the souls awake and united, and the puppet finally out of the box. But as far as I'm aware, that's all Locked at Freddy's has to offer. Overall, I think this game serves as a very interesting retelling of the original story. The gameplay is very fun, and somehow managed to make me not hate my two most hated mechanics in FNAF history. Everything in this game feels responsive yet restrictive in just the right way, and all of the characters work together perfectly in tandem with one another, something a lot of fan games just aren't capable of. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this game is actually just really underwhelming? Unknown FNAF fan games. Five Nights at Freddy's games that not many people have heard about. Obviously, there are plenty of these. This series has been around for almost 12 years, and the fan game community hasn't slowed down one bit on new releases. I personally love looking at random FNAF fan games in my personal time and finding unpopular ones that might be hidden gems. And a few months ago, I received an email from a dev with an early build of their game. I played it and thought it looked interesting, and recently I found out the full version was released. This game in question is called Jackie's Forest, a very interesting FNAF game to say the least, and that's all I'm going to say about it here. Stick around because I have my fair share of things to say about this specimen of a project, so let's waste no more time and dive into the world of Jackie's Forest. Alright, where should we start? If you said anything except night 1 to that question, then I hate to break it to you, you might be just a little bit brain dead, but that's okay. I'm here to help you through this process, so we're going to be starting with night 1. Something I really like about Jackie's Forest is that while the night sections are usually incredibly easy, each of them are completely different. So there's going to be something new to do each night, so developing a strategy is pretty much impossible. Let's move on to talking about night 1, the threats we have to deal with it inside, and of course, the tools at our disposal. Personally, my favorite part of these videos is talking about the tools at our disposal, and that's funny because I'm straight up lying to you, cuh. Anyways, in the first night section, we're actually in the office. Surprisingly, we actually don't have any cameras, which I'm gonna be honest, kind of makes this entire section really boring. But please, don't click off the video. I promise this game is interesting. I wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't. On the computer in front of us, we're able to look through our files and access a sound system that goes around the entire building. I'm willing to bet you're able to figure out what that means, but if not, allow me to explain it to you. Before I can explain it to you, however, I do need to talk about the first threat that this night introduces, Maurice. And no, not the cool guy from Madagascar. Unfortunately, it's just a disgusting fucking pig-ass, fuck-ass skunk. This motherfucker right here really likes the sound of children. So while most people dress up as monsters for Halloween, Maurice has been dressing up as Jared Fogle. So I guess he also dressed up as a monster, but it's like a little bit different because, like, you know what, it doesn't matter. Maurice will slowly make his way to your office. Shining your flashlight on the door in front of you when he gets close will reveal his rapist homo thug black boy face.
Don't be filming me, brother. You got your rapist homo thug black boys over there.
What the hell are you talking about?
All you have to do when you see him is play a sound from another room in your control panel to lure him away. However, this is where I have to talk about a truly disturbing and butthole-ripping mechanic this character has. Do you guys remember the dreaded 1 in 7 from FNAF 3 with Springtrap? Yeah? That mechanic that gives Springtrap a 1 in 7 chance to just ignore the audio lure? Yeah, well, Maurice has that too. Except this time around, instead of 1 in 7, it's borderline 1 in 2. Because this motherfucker does not move a goddamn inch, and I'm sick of it. The dev really thought, I know how I can make this character work. How about I make his entire mechanic just spamming a button until the player flips heads on a coin flip? Fuck him. But whatever. Once you eventually get lucky enough, Maurice will be dragged away. However, as I'm sure you could have guessed, that is not the only character active on this night, because if it was, this would easily be one of the most piss-poor sections from any FNAF game I've ever covered on this channel. So, who's the other little gooner we have to deal with tonight? Well, that would be Jackie, the character from the title of the game. You know, I always thought it would be pretty funny to make a FNAF game called Five Nights at whatever the fuck the name I choose is, and then never add a character with that name. Like, imagine Five Nights at Ronald's, but there's never a character named Ronald in the game. I don't know, maybe my sense of humor is just retarded, but I think that would be really funny. Anyway. Anyways, moving on to what Jackie actually does. Jackie's goal is to attack you via the window on your left. You can flash your flashlight to that window to check if Jackie is there. However, Jackie will also just make a fuck ton of noise whenever she moves. Once Jackie gets too close for comfort, all you have to do is turn the power to your office off until you hear her leave. And then you're Bing chilling, which is a quote from Martin Luther King, I'm pretty sure. But one last thing to talk about is the fact that this night is not time-based and is instead task-based. So you know what that means? No actual tasks have to be done. You really just have to click a button and wait for a loading bar to fill up and then click another button. So it's really just fucking time-based with a task-based blanket tossed over it. But once you finish the waiting simulator, night 1 will come to a close. But instead of just moving on to night 2, we instead get to talk about a post-night minigame because this game has those too. And trust me, the thought of doing a post-night minigame definitely does not make me want to put a hamster in a sock and start whipping it around like a mace. In this minigame, we need to help a squirrel pack food for a picnic. Seems pretty simple, and simple it is. Our first options for food are a piece of cheese or a fucking boot. Let's think about that, you stupid retarded ass squirrel. Have you ever eaten a boot? No, those go on your fucking feet. Next, she asks us what we can eat with the cheese, and our options are crackers or a fucking broken CD. Dumb bitch, why the fuck? Dumb bitch, why the fuck do you even have a CD that's broken? What could possibly be the point of keeping something like that in your house, Porter? Throw it away, trailer trash. Next up, we've got to add some fruit. So she asks us what kind of apple we'd like to bring to the picnic. Except instead of the options being Honeycrisp, Granny Smith, Gala, or whatever the fuck, the options are apple or apple core. Jesus Christ, bimbo bitch. An Apple Core? That was on your list of things to possibly bring? You're wasting my time asking me these dumbass questions. For fuck's sake, what's the next question? Let's just fucking get this over with. Next, we have to bring some dessert. And our options are chocolate or a fucking battery. I bet these bitches aren't even charged either. Just some dead ass batteries for us to shove up our ass. No, we're not eating batteries. Are you a baby? A stupid drooling baby? These questions are so simple, for God's sake. Next up, we get to choose a drink. And the options are an orange juice box or unlabeled broken ass bottle with who the fuck knows what in it. I'm just done, guys. This is making my head hurt. No fucking shit, we're gonna take the juice, you dumb bitch! I swear to God, intelligence is chasing this squirrel, but she's just so much faster. Hopefully, she doesn't ask another retarded question, because just like Kanye, I don't like retarded questions.
What? Please, next question. Please don't ask me any retarded questions.
Now, where should we pour our drink?
Are we serious right now? Are we actually so dead ass in this moment? Why the fuck would we pour the orange juice into some fuck ass rusty can with sepsis on it or some shit? And why would we pour it into the normal looking mug anyways? It was already in a fucking box with a straw. Guys, Sandy Cheeks has gotten a big downgrade. I hate this squirrel. But we have one last question. Please, don't be something stupid.
Now the most important part. What is the core of all life forms?
Oh. A computer chip or a pulsating brain. I don't really know why the brain is pulsating. They don't really do that. It's not a heart, but I guess I'll be picking that one. Cool. Anyways, then we go to the door to see our friends, but before we can leave, she says this.
Oh, silly me. How could I forget? We're never getting out of here.
So we're never allowed to leave the house. I'm stuck with this brain-dead rodent for the rest of time. Aye, gang, time to blow my shit clean off. But snapping back to reality, we do see a strange figure in the window. Not sure who that could be, but I'm going to take a guess it's probably this game's antagonist. With the minigame out of the way, we're safe to move on to night 2. With night 2 coming along, we appear to be in a new location, this time around being the maintenance room. Immediately, you'll notice your mother sitting on the table in front of us. Thank God that thing is made out of the incredibly strong material it is, because if it wasn't, you know damn well that bitch would have snapped in the middle like a twig. Anyways, we'll start talking about her in a second. To start, the way we complete this section is just by shredding a bunch of paper using the shredder in front of us. It's literally just another click and wait task-based mechanic, so really just a waiting game. You'll see in the top corner that we have 10 pages to shred. There are 2 characters attacking us this night, just like previously. However, before we talk about them, I want to talk about the fact that your shredder can jam. And if it does, all you have to do is slap it like I do to my kids when they talk a little bit too loud, and it'll go back to working as usual. Next, we have the wall behind us, which has a thermostat on it. Throughout the night, there will be several instances where you will need to change the temperature. Why do we have to do this? I have no fucking idea. Just accept it and do it, you little piglet. If you don't keep the temperature in the right spot, then you'll either die of a heat stroke or get hypothermia and die. Either way, you're dead, so just keep it at a crisp digit. Now we can move on to talking about the characters we have to deal with on this night. And of course, we'll talk about the beastly woman that is your mother first. What she does is incredibly simple. Occasionally, she'll look up at you like she thinks you're the waiter at the restaurant bringing her slop over. All you have to do is stare at her until she snaps out of it, and then you can continue doing what you were doing. Notice how your mom doesn't get up off the table either? That's probably because it's incredibly difficult for her to lift her cankles up. First world problems, am I right? The only other threat on this night is Maurice. Maurice will try to sneak up on you through the door in front of you. Apparently, we're not allowed to just keep the fucking door closed, so we'll have to hold it closed ourselves. Maurice is very quiet, so you'll have to check the door constantly to listen for him. If you hear him there, just hold the door closed and eventually he'll leave and you can go back to doing what you were doing. After shredding all 10 pieces of paper, night 2 will be completed and we can move on to the next post-night minigame, which hopefully this time will not make me want to nya paka and then do something with a train. My Russian homies know what I'm talking about. Come on, high five, hands up. Yeah, come here, bring it in right now. Come close. No, okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's okay. All right, so this minigame is just nearly as infuriating as the last one is, but I'm going to try to hold my tongue for as long as I can. In this minigame, we have to help the skunk that looks like a wolf set up a tent. So of course, the first step to setting up a tent is picking the biggest bag of marshmallows we see. Literally, what the fuck is this? You don't need marshmallows to set up a tent, you dirty slut. After picking the biggest bag of marshmallows for the skunk and his fat fuck friends, miraculously, the poles for the tent appear. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big camper myself, but I'm pretty confident that that is not what the poles of a tent look like. Next, we have to pick out enough sleeping bags for everyone that will be sleeping in the tent. All right, yes, that makes sense. Finally, something here that doesn't piss me off. And when we select the correct number, somehow the tarp is placed over the tent instead of the sleeping bags appearing. Fantastic! This makes so much sense and totally isn't about to make a blood vessel in my eye explode. Next, we need to pick a super long rope. Now, at first, I thought we would use these ropes to connect to the stakes that we're going to put in the ground. But instead of that, after selecting the longest rope, we just put the stakes in the ground and just punch that rope into the fucking woods or something, because as you can see, they're nowhere to be found. After we finish the tent, all we have to do is wait for the other people to arrive. Except while we're doing that, it appears that Maurice is hit by a fucking semi or something. I have no idea. That's what it sounds like, but we don't really see anything happen. Just this disgusting render of him staring at us. But with that, we can move on to night 3. On night 3, we're stationed backstage. Once again, we do have 2 threats to deal with throughout this section, and a task-based minigame that's just clicking and waiting once again. So let's talk about that first. We're tasked this night with deleting show stage sequences from, I'm assuming, the robot's AI? I'm not really sure, but luckily for us, what we're doing doesn't actually matter all too much. We do, however, have a fuck ton of them to delete, so this night will likely be the longest we've done so far. Anyways, on to the threats on this night. Once again, we have your mother, so let's talk about her. She will just try to walk up on you because she heard you have meat in your pants. Gross, not the type of meat we're talking about, you fucking buffoon. Once you see her, all you have to do is open up your panel and activate her sound sequence and it'll make her go away. Fun fact, the sound that actually lures her away is just the Burger King jingle, which really goes to show how down bad your mother is for food. She's eating Burger King? I didn't even think she would stoop that low, yet here we are. The other character active on this night is Jackie. You'll be able to see her on stage, which we are directly behind. Occasionally, she will leave this stage, which means in a few seconds, she will approach you. When she does, all you have to do is hold your light on her and she'll start shaking like the cashier at Wendy's when I hold him at gunpoint. And then she'll go back to the stage. But that's really it. While this night is probably the longest so far, I do feel it's probably one of the most underwhelming. But then again, if I'm being honest, the gameplay in this game as a whole is pretty underwhelming. Anyways, let's move on to the next post-night minigame. Just kidding, fuckhead. There is no post-night minigame this time around. Instead, we're just booted to night 4 because we're not allowed to have any fun apparently. So, on night 4, we set up shop in the playroom. Why? Well, apparently we were chased in here by animatronics or something. I'm not really sure why we're here because we're never explicitly told, but we can work with it. Phone Guy tells us that he'll try to work on activating the speakers to get the characters to fuck off for long enough for us to escape. But in the meantime, we'll have to defend ourselves from 3 characters instead of just 2, except it really is still pretty much just 2, but I'll explain why in a second. Let's start by talking about Jackie, since she can't seem to leave our nuts alone. Bars. She will attempt to attack us from the playhouse door. When we see her, all we have to do is close the door and she won't be able to see us. You'll also notice that unlike the door from night 2, this door doesn't have to be held closed and can actually be toggled. So what's stopping us from just holding the door closed the entire night? Well, that would be because of your fat fuck mother. That's why. She's programmed to play hide and seek. And while the phone guy says it's to play it with the children, I personally happen to know that it's really because she plays hide and seek with the waitresses and tries to hunt down the food they're carrying out to the tables before they can get it to the customers. I'm no idiot. So yeah, all you have to do to avoid her is just not keep the door closed for too long. So she really doesn't have a mechanic. She's just a consequence to abusing another mechanic. So for that reason, I'm saying she really doesn't count as a character on this night. Who does count as a character is the actual other threat on this night. The skunk dick. He will try to attack you through the playhouse window. During this night, you're equipped with 15 balls. Why? Because eat a dick, that's why. Whenever you see Maurice appear outside of your window, just throw one of the balls in his direction and that'll distract him for a while. We obviously can't spam these balls since we only have 15 of them, but if we need to, I'm willing to BME Pain Olympics myself to get 2 more. But with that, that's really all we have to do. No task this time since we're surviving, so it's a pretty typical sit and survive kind of night. But with that, this night will come to a close and we can move on to the next post-night minigame. In this minigame, we have to help your fat shit mom bake a cake. She says it's because she invited her friends over for a sleepover, but we all know your mom ate her friends because she was hungry. So she's really just baking this cake for herself, fat ass. To start, we need to grab the butter. Thankfully, it appears this time that there's nothing fucking stupid to piss me off. The only thing that really does so far is the fact that the egg, for some reason, has way more white than yolk. Like, way more than usual. That does not look natural at all. Somebody has got to check the chicken that shot that fucking thing out of its dick. Eggs come out of the dick, right? Next up, we gotta add sugar and mix that shit up like I do with all of the babies in the nursery while the nurses aren't looking. Next, we add the fuck-ass egg and the vanilla extract that smells way better than it tastes. Finally, we mix it again, add in the flour and the milk, and mix it one last time. I've made a few cakes in my time, and I'm pretty confident that we used these ingredients out of order, but fuck it, I don't really care. And while the cake is being baked, we're asked if we can find the TV remote since they're all going to want to watch something. And while I'm sure you can tell by looking at your screen where the remote is, what is much more interesting to do is slowly looking to our right, where we will begin to hear the sound of a dog scratching at the door. Click on the door, and we see this.
Are you lost, little one?
I'm looking for my dog.
A little white one?
Yes. Have you seen him?
Yes. He's here with me. He misses you a lot. I was looking for his owner.
Can I please see him?
Of course. Come with me.
So, this dude in a rabbit mask 100% stabbed the shit out that kid, right? It's not just me thinking that? Okay, good. Just gotta make sure we're all on the same page because, and again, I'm no FNAF expert or anything, but I'm pretty confident he killed the shit out that kid. Anyways, with that, the minigame ends and we can move on to night 5. Night 5 takes place in the boiler room, and this night is something else, let's just say that. And by something else, I mean by far the most anxiety-inducing night so far. Why? Not because of how hard it is, because it really isn't that hard at all, but instead because of how long it takes to make the 2 threats go away. Let's talk about it. The first threat on this night is once again, for like the millionth time, your fat as fuck bouncy ball looking ass mother. She probably heard that it was called the boiler room and assumed that meant that's where they boil the water for all the pasta she's forcing down her throat. Fat pig bitch. Literal pig bitch. When she approaches you from behind, all you have to do is hold the gate closed until she leaves. The other character, Maurice, is who makes my nerves ache like they're exposed and somebody clapped as hard as they could with them in between them. When he appears around from the corner looking at you all seductive like, all you have to do is turn to the massive valves in front of you and turn the smallest one at the bottom right. This will cause a whistling sound to play which is supposed to scare him away. Except, here's the funny part. Do you remember how during night 1 he had a very large chance to just not fucking listen to the sound cues at all? Yeah? Well, he does that here as well. Isn't that just so fucking awesome? Hell yeah, it is. We love that. This is why this section is so nerve-wracking, because this dude just doesn't ever leave. I love it. Anyways, on to what we actually have to do to complete this section. It's pretty simple. The phone guy will slowly read off different pipe colors in a specific order, and we'll have to turn the corresponding pipes in the boiler room in the correct order to complete the night. Very easy, but not so when the fucking skunk won't hop up off me. Once we get close to turning all the valves, you'll notice that if you turn around, the stupid squirrel will be present instead of your mom. Very weird, since as far as we were aware, she wasn't supposed to be showing up at this time, so why is she here? After finishing all of the valves, the building shakes. Turning around, we'll see the gate is open and the squirrel is gone. And soon after that, the building shakes again and we black out and the credits roll. Closed down restaurant is burned to the ground by boiler failure. Last night, the restaurant Jackie's Forest, is burned down to the ground due to an explosion caused by a lack of maintenance of the boilers. The building had been abandoned on January of this year, and it was rumored that the explosion was caused by a lack of proper maintenance from the workers when leaving the building. One casualty was reported, as only one body was found in the remains of the building, crushed by rubble and burned to a crisp. It is theorized that this may have been a burglar or homeless person, as the building wasn't operating and didn't have any workers in it. The 4 animatronic performers the restaurant was known for were found in unusable conditions and will be relocated to a storage facility owned by the company. And that nets us this game's bad ending. Now I know what you're thinking, and trust me, I'm thinking the same thing. How the fuck do we get a good ending in this game? And please, dear God, tell me it's not that I have to collect a random item in each night. Well, thankfully, no, we don't have to do that. Instead, during the boiler room night, if you just completely fucking ignore what the phone guy says and spam the shit out of all the valves, for some reason, the whole building shakes and we get teleported to a room with an elevator. Entering the elevator, we get the following cutscene.
Eddie, I told you to stay in the boiler room. What are you doing? You're in grave danger. You, can't leave the boiler room, much less go into the elevator while the building is falling apart. You have to turn around and leave now. I don't think you're listening to me. I said turn around. Go back to the boiler room. You are not supposed to be in the storage. Not only is it unsafe, but there is confidential stuff down there. You have to leave now.
Ignoring the fact that voice acting was completely awful, I do find it kind of odd how the phone guy really wanted us to turn back, and why he didn't want us to go to the storage room. But with that, we exit the elevator and do exactly what he told us not to, enter the storage room, which actually acts as this game's 6th night. So, here we are in the storage room, by far the most interesting night in this entire game, mainly because there's more than 2 things for us to do. This night integrates every single character we've seen so far, alongside a completely new threat. Let's quickly go over the tools at our disposal first. To start, this is the first night in the game with actual cameras. However, you want to hear something really funny? They're completely useless. So the only thing I'm going to say about them is that the character renders in these cameras are actually pretty creepy for what it's worth. So let's start going down the list of characters on this night and exactly what they do. We'll start with Jackie. Her whole goal is to attack your right door. You won't be able to see her there unless you flash your light in the doorway. If she's there, simply close the door until she leaves. Simple sugar. Maurice is much the same, except he attacks your left door, and instead of closing the door, you'll have to wear a mask you somehow pulled out of your ass, since as you can clearly see, the lever to the door is fucking shattered. The next character to talk about is your pig bitch of a mother. She will try to attack the giant hallway in front of you. When you see her there, all you have to do is pull down the massive gate and she won't be able to get in. As you can probably tell, just because there's more characters in this night in no way means that this game gets any bit harder than it has been. But finally, we can talk about the brand new character on this night. I don't know its name because we're not told, but I'm just gonna call it the Prototype, since I bet that's how uncreative its actual name is. Hey, recording Dxtr here. I went into the custom night. Its name is Nulls, so yeah, just keep that in mind. I'm gonna keep reading it as Prototype since that's how I wrote it, and I'm lazy, but just know it's Nulls. The Prototype has 2 ways to attack you, your left door and the hallway in front of you. For both instances of attack, all you have to do is put your mask on and it'll go away. This night is really fucking boring, guys, I can't lie. But with that, just survive until 6 a.m., which is much shorter than most FNAF games, and we get a new newspaper clipping. Engineer arrested after evidence is released by fire survivor in Jackie's Forest restaurant. Last night, the restaurant Jackie's Forest burned down to the ground after an explosion caused by boiler failure. The failure was caused by Eddie Garcia, a worker who was misinstructed by Harvey Turner, the engineer of the restaurant, who is being charged with attempted murder and obstruction of justice after it was revealed by Garcia that Turner had sent him to destroy incriminating evidence from the building. Garcia was able to survive and escape the fire and is being sentenced to home arrest for complicity, while Turner will be kept in custody while the case is investigated. Some evidence links him to 2 local cases, but nothing is confirmed yet. The restaurant had closed in January of this year, rumored to be because of the Maddie Denton case, a 7-year-old girl who went missing in the restaurant on September of last year. And with that, we get the good ending. As far as I'm aware, no more lore as to what the fuck is going on with the weird dude or the dead dog or the dead kid, so I'm just gonna leave it and pretend like it doesn't exist. I mean, I guess if you want to analyze it quickly from that newspaper clipping, it's kind of hinted that Turner, or the phone guy, is the one that killed the girl and the dog or something. I don't fucking know. But with that, that's all Jackie's Forest has to offer. Like I said, I was actually sent a demo of this game a few months ago by the devs, which only had the first 2 nights. And I remember thinking that this game could do something pretty cool if they polished it up a bit. And while from the demo I got, the game has definitely gotten a small upgrade, I figured I should give it a white video the moment I saw the full version was released. Overall, Jackie's Forest tries to do a lot of things, but I personally think it falls short in all of them. I don't think it does a very good job at telling its story, considering I was literally able to piece together pretty much none of it. I know there's at least 1 dead kid and a dog and some weird stranger guy that probably killed some kids, but who is he? What does the prototype thing have to do with anything? And who are any of the characters besides our own and the phone guy? That's just completely unknown to me. And on top of that, while each night is unique and I do really like that, I just feel like each night could have had something more. Because as this game stands, while I do like the character designs, I do think that those are the only memorable parts of this game. One of my favorite parts about making videos on this channel is picking out the games. I'll spend days playing random FNAF games, and most of them don't really catch my attention like some do. Some videos I've made on this channel were because of pure nostalgia, while others were made because I played something that I found amazing, and today is no different. The game I will be talking about today is called A Bite at Freddy's. I began playing this game like I would any other, and if I'm being totally honest, this might be my new favorite FNAF game I've ever played. I feel this game blows even Joy of Creation story mode out of the water. My god, it's so good. As much as I want to dive into this game right now, I have a quick announcement to talk about first. If you don't care about it and just want to get to the review, you can skip to the time you see on screen here. Recently, YouTube has started age restricting my videos because of my vulgar language. I think that's stupid, but whatever. So you'll notice that in this video and all future videos, all cuss words and other inappropriate words will be censored. This is not something I'm happy about. I don't like that I have to do this in order for videos to be pushed out, but it's what I have to do. So to compensate, I've made the decision to start a Patreon. Again, another thing I'm not very happy with, but it's what I'm doing. By joining the Patreon, depending on the tier you may choose, you'll get access to my content early, with no ads, and uncensored. And if you choose the highest tier, Dxtr Gold, you'll get your name mentioned at the end of videos. Blah, 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 whatever Patreon stuff. There is absolutely no pressure whatsoever to join the Patreon. I personally don't care if it sits on 0 patrons until the end of time. This is just being made in case anybody wants to listen to these stupid videos uncensored and support me on the side as well. Again, no pressure at all. Don't worry about it. The link is in the description. With that being out of the way, let's get to the video. A Bite at Freddy's begins with a cutscene reminiscent of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, with us in the perspective of Freddy. We look around as 2 people talk about the new animatronics. We can look side to side and see Chica and Bonnie. And this is where I already want to pause and say how f***ing cool these characters look. This game went totally against what every other FNAF game does when it comes to designs. Rather than having the characters just look creepy and dingy in some stanky pizzeria, these characters are based off of Westernism, with each character having a big goofy cowboy hat. I love the change of pace. I also really like how the characters have really long faces. I think it's super unique in comparison to what a lot of other FNAF games create. But enough gawking, let's get into the gameplay. On night 1, which is really called Course 1, which I'm just realizing as I'm typing this, I should probably explain, so I'll quickly do that. Rather than having multiple nights, A Bite at Freddy's just has multiple courses, that I could only assume means a meal course, since in this game, instead of having to survive until a certain time, you have to survive long enough to see 3 meals served. Let me explain a bit more, since I know that still doesn't make any sense. Unlike most FNAF games where you're totally alone, in A Bite at Freddy's, your manager is also working in the building with you. His job is to make all of the food, and your job is to confirm its delivery. You might be asking, what the f does delivery mean? And I'll explain it to you, even though you could just open a dictionary. Throughout the course of each course, odd sentence, but whatever, your manager will get a meal ready. Each meal has 3 stages they go through. Preparing, where the meal is being prepared in the kitchen, if you couldn't have guessed. Sending, where the meal is put on a conveyor belt and transported to different locations in the building. And delivered, where the meal has made it to a designated location and awaits confirmation. The next meal will not start being prepared until the last meal has been confirmed. There are 3 meals that need to be confirmed each night. The first meal will be delivered to party room A, the second to party room B, and the third straight to your office where you can collect it and eat it like a little piglet. To confirm an order, you have to go to the location where it was delivered, whether that be the camera or your office, and just click confirm. Then the next meal will begin to be prepared. Once you confirm the order in your office, you will complete the course. Course 1 introduces 2 characters, Talk Show Bonnie and Talk Show Chica. Talk Show Bonnie will move around the restaurant and will take one of 2 paths. Path A, he will make his way to the entrance of our office. Once he enters, you will be able to see him in one of 3 locations in your office. You'll have to shut off the lights in your office until you see him leave, where you'll then be free to turn your lights back on. I think this mechanic alone is pretty boring, but it's made much more interesting because Bonnie will attempt to hide from you in different locations. It's never hard to spot him, but if you're ever super focused on something else, which you definitely will be, it can be pretty easy to miss him. It's incredibly simple, but just makes the game that much more interesting. Path B that Bonnie can take leads him to the kitchen, which brings up a small point I want to mention. If you look at the kitchen camera, you'll actually be able to see your manager making the food, or you'll actually only be able to see his big goofy cowboy hat. I think it's pretty silly, and I also think it's a lot sillier that when Bonnie is in the kitchen, he chooses to completely ignore your manager. I guess the taste of my asshole is just so much more desirable. And of course, our manager pays no mind to the fact a murderous robot with no legs is right behind him, which actually brings up another point I have with these characters. Similar to Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese, the characters don't have any legs. Since they're meant to always be behind something, designing legs would never make any sense from a design standpoint. But because these animatronics have no legs, they just drag themselves around, which, even if it's technically not as threatening as a 7-foot tall, totally mobile robot is, it's totally much more creepy. Anyways, Bonnie will enter the kitchen camera and attempt to crawl onto the conveyor belt. On each camera where a conveyor belt is present, you'll have access to a close door button. When pressed, if you're terrible at context clues, I'll piece this together for you, the door to the conveyor belt will obviously close. This poses a problem with meals not being able to be sent. But I never once had a problem with that, so I don't care. Once you close the door, within 3 seconds, Bonnie will leave the kitchen camera and you'll be free to reopen the door. You might ask yourself, why would I not keep the doors closed the whole course and only open them to let meals through? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I really needed a segue into explaining another crucial mechanic: power. A Bite at Freddy's does power much differently than other FNAF games do. In this case, you want your power low all the time. Performing tasks will cause the power to increase. These include closing conveyor doors, stopping the conveyor, which I'll explain more in a second, and turning off the lights for Bonnie, which, by the way, doesn't make sense. Why would turning the lights off cause power to be used? I don't know. Don't ask. And a few other things that wouldn't make sense if I brought them up right now. If your power ever reaches 100%, it will overheat, and you'll have to wait for it to slowly decrease back down to 0% before you can use any of the devices that cause it to increase. So basically, if your generator hits 100%, you lose, because there's a very small chance where that happens and you still beat the course. Anyways, getting back to Bonnie. Let's say you don't close the conveyor door and Bonnie hops on the conveyor. What happens then? Well, in that case, Bonnie will ride the conveyor all the way up to your office. There will be a noticeable sound cue when he does, or any other animatronic is doing this. When you hear them approaching, you'll turn to the conveyor and pull the stop conveyor lever. This will, as the name suggests, stop the conveyor and temporarily shine a light down it, where you'll be able to see the lovely death robot staring back at you. Just like the doors, after about 3 seconds he'll leave and you can let go of the lever. So this brings up an interesting balancing idea. Let's say your power is pretty high and you see that Bonnie is about to jump on the conveyor. You're scared that if you use the door, your power will go up to 100%, and you obviously don't want that to happen. You actually have some options here. You can either risk it and close the door anyways, or you can choose to allow Bonnie to get on the conveyor and stop him at your office later when your power has gone down to a more comfortable level. Considering that, once they hop on the conveyor, it takes quite a bit of time before they reach your office. When no power users are being used, the power slowly decreases. That's something important I probably should have mentioned earlier. But another important thing to note about stopping them in your office is that stopping the conveyor makes your power increase significantly faster than if you were to have just closed the door. So it's really something you'll need to learn to feel out while you're playing in order to make the smartest choice. Now, let's talk about the other character this course adds, Talk Show Chica. Chica works somewhat similarly to Bonnie, where she'll wander around the building and eventually choose one of two paths. On path A, Chica will head to party room B and attempt to hop on the conveyor like Bonnie does on the kitchen camera. Just like Bonnie, you may close the conveyor door, and then in around 3 seconds, Chica will leave and you can open it again. Path B, on the other hand, is very interesting and is one of my favorite mechanics in this game just because of how goofy it is. Like Bonnie, Chica's other path will have her head straight to your office. However, where Bonnie will hide, Chica will sit behind your desk. Along with a notable sound cue you will hear, you will also be able to see her big goofy cowboy hat slowly rising up from behind your desk. When you see her there, you need to, no joke, grab a toy gun from off your desk like this is Moosey, aim for between Chica's eyes, and fire a fake projectile at her before she fires her fake projectile at you. If you win the standoff, Chica will exit your office. This has to be one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in a FNAF game, ever. I could talk all day about how much sense this doesn't make, but this entire game is super silly, so I'm not taking it super seriously here. I love this mechanic. I think it's unique and goofy. Should I call it goofy one more time? Have I put that in the script enough? Whatever. Let's move on. The second course of the game activates Talk Show Freddy, and with him comes a new camera and a new mechanic. This was super interesting to me. I've never before seen a FNAF game like this add a whole new camera to a night. This caught me off guard and I was very pleasantly surprised. Freddy, unsurprisingly, works similar to Bonnie and Chica. Again, he will wander around the building and choose one of two paths. I'm going to give you a quick spoiler alert. This pick a path system is the same for every character in the game, so I'm going to not bring it up for the remaining of the characters. Freddy's first possible path has him go to Party Room A and attempt to climb onto the conveyor. Just close the conveyor door, yada yada yada, you'll be fine. His other path, however, has him go to the new camera, which is Vent Camera. When you click on the vent camera, a few other lines will appear on the map, showing you which cameras have access to the vent, those being both of the party rooms and the hallway. I've actually never really talked about the hallway, but it will become more important later, so let me just quickly explain some small things about it now. The hallway in A Bite at Freddy's acts as a type of hub where you will be able to commonly see most of the animatronics. Multiple of the characters have a few different states on this camera, which can help you understand and be able to predict what their next moves will be. For example, Chica has a chance to appear on the hallway camera very far away. Looking at the layout of the building and where the camera is placed, you'll be able to tell that she is directly outside of your office door. So, if you can make time to catch a peek at that hallway cam, you'll be able to start a mental timer in your head for how long it will be until Chica enters your office. And because of this, you also know that she won't be attempting to hop on the conveyor in Party Room B. Anyways, back to Freddy and the vent. His second path also leads him to Party Room A, where instead of getting on the conveyor, you will see him climbing into the vent. After this happens, you will be able to hear a notable vent sound cue, alerting you to the fact he's up there and hotboxing your vent. When you hear Freddy in your vent, you must go to the vent camera and turn on the vent fan. This will cause a fan to drop down and block Freddy's path. He will then be forced to turn around, and after 3 seconds when he leaves, you can safely turn the vent fan back off. Turning on this fan works the same as a conveyor door, so it also increases your power. There is something really cool and really quirky and also a little bit skibbity about Freddy and this vent, however. In this vent, Freddy has 3 notable states. I'm not exactly sure how the game decides which state Freddy will be in, but he has a state far from the camera, close to the camera, and the final, very important state where he's very close to the camera and looking down into your office at you. When Freddy is in this peeping Tom state, if you activate the vent fan, it will actually chop Freddy's f***ing head off and it will fall into your f***ing office. What does this do, you ask? Well, when I was playing, I assumed it was just a funny little gag. The only thing I noticed was that without his head, Freddy was a little harder to spot on the cameras since the characters' heads are the most noticeable part of their bodies. What I didn't notice, however, and only found out while doing some extra research for this video, was the fact that when Freddy's head is off, his aggression increases dramatically. So much so that he will move from his start location to the party room and to the vent in a matter of seconds. And when you get rid of him, you will only have a few seconds until he's back. You know, with how many times I've lost to Headless Freddy, you'd think I'd have picked up on this, but I never did. I guess I'm just a fucking moron. Course 3 adds the most frustrating character in this whole game, Foxy. Foxy will start on a different camera from the other animatronics talked about so far. This is pretty standard when it comes to Foxy. However, for some unknown reason, instead of being Western based like the rest of the characters, for some reason, Foxy is a scientist. What? Why? I fail to understand the thought process here. But whatever, that's not really important. Let's just go over what this goober does. Foxy's first path leads him to the kitchen just like Bonnie, where he will attempt to hop on the conveyor. What the f ever, you guys get it and don't care. Why is he frustrating is all you want to know. Foxy's second path leads us to the backroom camera, a camera that, at this point, has served no real purpose. In this camera, Foxy will have 3 states, each one bringing him closer and closer to some hanging wires, with the third state having him about to bite the shit out of them and kill himself. When Foxy is in this final state, you must press a button on that camera that will reboot the cameras. This also acts as a shock and will stop Foxy and move him back to the hall or main room. As far as I noticed, restarting the camera doesn't cause your power to increase, but it does make the cameras unusable for a small period of time. If you choose to not stop Foxy, which I wouldn't recommend, it's borderline game over. While you don't lose straight away, your camera's power will start to run on your office's generator, and as a side effect of that, every time you open your cameras to use them, it will increase your power, something it hadn't been doing prior. So while you don't necessarily lose when Foxy does this, with how much checking the cameras is necessary to beat any of the courses, you're basically f***ed. But after beating this course, you're actually done. Unlike typical FNAF games where you have 5 nights, A Bite at Freddy's only has 3. I definitely think this is an interesting approach, and also certainly helps with the game not feeling too repetitive, which, by the way, this game is great at making itself feel fresh all the time, but I'll get to that more later. After successfully fulfilling all 3 of these courses, we sit down with our manager and have a nice meal. Only thing that's a little off is we can see a twisted, malformed, deformed, crippled version of Freddy crawling near the table. That's when we're booted back to the menu and we see we have the option to do one final course. The final course acts as this game's 6th night, and it adds a brand new character, Threadbare. Lore-wise, Threadbare was an old Freddy robot they used to use, switching him out for a new model after a kid bit his face off in 1987. Are you kidding me? The bite of 87 in this game was committed by a child on an animatronic. That's hilarious. This game is so non-serious. I love it so much. Anyways, what does Threadbare do? Well, as I'm sure you could expect, he acts similarly to Freddy. His first path has him go to Party Room B and try to hop on the conveyor, and his second path has him enter the vent through the hallway. The only difference you'll notice from Threadbare and the rest of the characters is that Threadbare actually has a third path he can take, that being going down to the back room where Foxy can go and immediately making you have to restart the cameras. He's not forgiving like Foxy is. Foxy has 3 stages, giving you ample warning to prepare yourself. When Threadbare enters your back room and reams you in the asshole while pulling your hair from behind, you need to immediately drop what you're doing and deal with his bullshit. But after beating this course, the game is over. Psych, fucking idiot, we still got custom courses to talk about. You might be thinking, why are you even talking about this? Custom nights are boring as f***. And usually I would agree with you, but this game does something super awesome and I really need to talk about it, both to pad for runtime and because it's just sick. Similar to Five Nights at Freddy's 2 Custom Night, there are multiple pre-built custom modes to play through, but unlike FNAF 2, each mode in A Bite at Freddy's adds a unique challenge on top of the custom AI. Let's start with just beating the custom course on a totally random AI number, not all 20, not all 0, and not using a pre-built challenge. Upon beating it, you will be rewarded a yellow slip, which is pretty standard in FNAF games. It starts to get interesting when you beat the custom course with every character's AI set to 0, in which case you will be given a roll of toilet paper. This is incredibly stupid, but I love it. It's so goofy that this was even thought of. It's the small things that matter in games sometimes, and this proves that point. Now, let's get to the challenges, starting with Basket Hunt. Basket Hunt has Freddy, Bonnie, and Threadbare active. Bonnie and Freddy having an AI value of 10, and Threadbare having an AI value of 5. The extra challenge of this course is that, after a meal has been prepped, the basket it's in will be sent to a totally random room. You'll have to search through the cameras like a Where's Waldo in order to find each basket that comes through. Not only is this a super cool addition that the creator 100% didn't need to add, our manager can also be seen with a bag over his head. Since he claimed we were so good at working, he could do it without looking. Because of this, it's probably why the meals get sent to the wrong location, because he can't see where he's going. And on top of that, after beating the course, the final meal that gets sent to your office has a boot instead of food, because again, the f***er can't see anything. I think this is such a cool little extra cherry on top. The level of detail is so great, and again, wasn't even necessary. I love everything about this game. I actually don't have any complaints up until this point. The next challenge is Haunted Roulette, arguably the weakest of the challenges. In this mode, the characters active are Freddy and Chica with an AI value of 10, and Bonnie and Foxy with an AI value of 5. In this challenge, you get a unique item called the Shocker. Throughout the night, key tools you use may become haunted, those tools being your toy gun, light button, vent fan, and conveyor lever. Throughout the course, while you're being attacked, you'll have to keep a close eye on these tools and use your shocker on them if you notice they're haunted. If you try to use a tool while it's haunted, the actual tool will jump scare you, which is just fucking, say it with me, goofy. On top of that, beating the night rewards you with a haunted meal basket that, when grabbing, will also jump scare you. What a treat. Coming in the opposite of hot, we have the next challenge called Cold Kitchen. This challenge consists of Freddy and Bonnie with an AI value of 10, and Chica and Threadbare with an AI value of 5. In this challenge, the heater in the restaurant broke, and to compensate, our manager is wearing earmuffs, which you can see on the kitchen camera. How cute. But this course's challenge is directly affected by the cold. Not only is it f***ing snowing in the building, Jesus Christ, but occasionally it'll get so cold that you won't be able to do shit. In order to stop this from happening, you have to occasionally go to the back room camera and reboot the cameras. This again releases an electric shock, which I guess heats up the building. Doesn't make much sense, but f*** you, it's what we're working with. Upon beating this course, you'll be given a nice little snowman. The next challenge, called Out of Service, contains Freddy and Foxy with an AI value of 5, and Chica and Bonnie with an AI value of 10. The special, super cool, kooky, and funny twist being the conveyor doors don't fucking work. If you recall earlier, I said you're able to allow animatronics through the conveyor and stop them at your office later, and doing this gives you a good opportunity to think and balance your power. Guess what, lips? That can't happen here. If an animatronic gets onto your conveyor, you're f***ed. Because on top of the doors not working, the lever in your office doesn't work either, so you won't be able to stop a god thing. This mode led me to develop the strategy of only checking the kitchen cam, party room cams, vent cam, and back room cam, since the rest aren't very important. Eventually, I started glancing at the hallway cam just to see where Chica was and if Threadbare was going to be climbing into the vent soon, but I didn't start doing that until a later night I'll talk about in a second. Anyways, beating Out of Service gets you finger puppets of Freddy and Bonnie. What about Chica and Foxy finger puppets? I hear you bitching about. Shut the f*** up, I'll get there in a second. The next challenge is Lunch Rush, which has all 5 animatronics at an AI value of 10. The extra challenge of this night is that you have to confirm 7 orders when every other night you've only had to confirm 3. And with every animatronic at 10, this is a course where your nerves really start to get tested. And this is also the course where I started checking the hallway camera. After beating this course, you get a Bonnie clock. Why is it Bonnie? I don't know. Because rabbits are fast? I don't know. Get off my ass, man. I'm trying my best here. The final built-in challenge is called Full Course, which has all characters at an AI value of 20. This is just as you'd expect it to be, but something important to note, A Bite at Freddy's has characters activate in an order. Even with their AI values cranked up as high as they are, on Full Course, each character still won't begin moving all at the same time. Don't get me wrong, this challenge is still incredibly difficult, it just isn't incredibly difficult right out of the gate. Beating this challenge gives you the Foxy and Chica finger puppets you were bitching about earlier. By the way, I still have yet to beat Full Course. I know that I can, I just haven't had time to pour the attempts in needed to do so. Now, what if I told you there was a challenge even harder than Full Course? Harder than all 520 mode? Would you believe me? Well, you should, because I'm not just bringing this up for no f***ing reason. If, while in the custom course menu, you manually set all the characters' AI values to 20 and then start the night, you will enter max mode. It's very similar to Full Course, but with one major difference. Every character activates right at the start of the night. You might think that's not a big change, but I promise you it's noticeable. You may not notice right away, but as the game goes on, your power will slowly start to creep out of control. It's insane what making the characters start at different times can do in terms of balancing. It's crazy how much more difficult it is when played this way. Even though the characters are just as aggressive, with them starting at the same time, you'd think that they were f***ing at 21. But if you somehow manage to beat this challenge, you'll be awarded with a Fredbear finger puppet, which confused me when I read about it, because as we know, a Fredbear doesn't actually exist in this game. So who is this? My only possible guess is that Fredbear is just Threadbear before he got his face all eaten up on, but I guess I'm not totally sure. I think most people would agree with me when I say the Five Nights at Freddy's formula can get stale really fast, and with the ungodly amount of FNAF fan games out there, it's only making the genre feel more bloated and full of bad acts. However, sometimes a fan game appears from the poop and pee infested FNAF category on Game Jolt and really opens my eyes and shows me something super creative that I've never seen before. Enter Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese, a game made by the Radiance team. Yes, the same team that brought us the amazing Treasure Island remakes. For this video, note I will be talking about the reboot, as that's the one I played. Before we start, I'd like to say thank you to all of you who watched my Garden of Bam Bam video. I just started this channel, and 3 days after that video was released, it already passed 100 views, so thanks for that. Five Nights at Chuck E. Cheese begins with us reading a note that we will be covering somebody named Sue's night shifts for the week because she's having some family issues. I'm not sure how taking shifts works for all jobs, but I feel like in most cases you can only cover someone's shift if you worked the same shift they do. And from the way the phone guy character talks to us, it sure seems like we're not from the night shift originally like Sue is. Maybe I'm wrong and this point was stupid, and if that's the case then please ignore that. Night 1 begins and we're greeted with one of the coolest office designs I've ever seen. In front of us we have a desk with a lamp on it, some pins, a newspaper, a toy car, and a large monitor. Typically in FNAF games and fan games, the characters can be found immediately on the cameras. A lot of the time characters will spawn on some sort of show stage like in the originals, however, this game chooses to do something completely different, and I love it. Behind our desk, we see what appears to be pictures of all the characters hanging on the wall, but no, those are not pictures, those are the actual characters standing right in front of us. We know this because as the characters begin to move, we are no longer able to see them in front of us. When I first played through this game and I couldn't see anyone on the cameras, I was really confused, but then Chucky disappeared from what I thought was a picture frame. It terrified me, and I think this is one of the most creative things I've ever seen a FNAF fan game do. Night 1 isn't too difficult, only having Chucky being active. He'll move around the cameras until he reaches the only door to your office, which is behind you. Before I show you this door, I just want to say how fucking cool this is. Not only do we get the comfort of knowing which characters are active and knowing which ones we have to worry about right now because of the stage in front of us. Now, the game is actively forcing us to turn our backs to these characters, which we know are quite literally feet away from us. Before Chucky gets to the door behind you, I said he moves around your cameras. Unlike Five Nights at Freddy's, where the animatronics show up on the cameras and can easily be found, and typically don't really seem to know the cameras are there, the animatronics in Five Nights at Chucky's know that the cameras are on and that you are watching them. Because of this, you'll see a lot of the characters often crouch down and duck behind things, almost like they're hiding and hoping you don't see them. This is such an amazing and creepy touch that it just makes the demeanor of the characters all the more scary. It seems like they're very much conscious and are capable of making their own decisions. When Chucky gets to your door, he does something a little different than the usual FNAF character would. Rather than just standing at the door, again, when you flash your flashlight into the doorway, Chucky is crouched down. And if it wasn't for a sound cue he made, you might actually miss that he's there. Since there's not just one state that he can be in, he'll actually hide in multiple areas in your doorway in hopes that you don't see him. Side note, as I was doing research for this game and writing the script, I learned something about the animatronics in this game. I said the characters crouch down, but that isn't exactly true. Turns out the characters perform in these small boxes that we see in our office and are never actually supposed to be able to move around. Because of this, the animatronics don't actually have legs, so no, the characters aren't crouching in the cameras, they're actually dragging themselves around in order to get to you, which actually makes the situation you're in all the more horrifying. Anyways, when Chucky appears in your doorway, you have to close what this game calls the gate. It's very similar to the normal FNAF doors, but a little different. Rather than just punching a button and having the doors close, you have to pull and hold down this lever to close the gate. But it doesn't close immediately. You're forced to sit and watch the gate slowly close, knowing that a very dangerous threat is only feet away from you. This thought alone makes an act that should be simple and thoughtless feel incredibly intense. I said that Chucky has a sound cue for when he appears at your doorway, but it's actually multiple sound cues that will play at random whenever he arrives. Now, you may be asking, what's the sound cue he makes when he leaves? Well, if this situation wasn't already butthole puckering enough, Chucky makes no sound cue letting you know he's left your doorway, and you can't flash your light when the gate is down, meaning in order to check if he's still there, you have to let go of the lever and flash your light, leaving yourself vulnerable to attack. This whole system has been designed so well, I don't really have the words to describe how much I like it. Dealing with Chucky is terrifying almost every time you have to do it, and that's saying a lot considering how often he shows up at your door. On the upside, there's no power, so you can hold down your gate and use your cameras as much as you'd like with no need to worry. Once the time hits 6 AM, the night is over, and we move on to the second gameplay loop this game has to offer, the storage segment. The storage segment is a small minigame that plays in between each night. The idea is exactly the same as the plush trap minigame from FNAF 4, allowing the player to skip 2 hours of the next night, which in this game, trust me, is very helpful, as this game did not ask for consent before it railed me in the ass. Maybe I'm just really bad at FNAF games, but this game is actually really hard. Anyways, the post-night requires you to find a certain number of items on a large shelf, while a character named Krusty the Cat stalks you from behind. Krusty will play a sound cue every now and then notifying you of his location, and you'll have to turn around and flash him with your light to make him go away. When he does, he'll play one of an assortment of sound cues. After collecting all the items, the post-night is over and the next night can begin. Before I talk about night 2 though, I want to talk about how amazing and creepy the character designs in this game are. Garten of Banban, take note. I'm not going to go through each character, but look at Chucky. Words cannot describe how disgusting he looks in a good way. He looks like he would be very damp. He's grungy and dirty, which really works well in the environment that you see him in, as the set designs in this game are actually a masterpiece. Each area gives off its own unsettling and disturbing vibes while also tying into each other very seamlessly. This is one of the few FNAF fan games where I didn't feel like the devs were trying to replicate the style of sets that the original FNAF games had. While it definitely shared similarities, I don't feel like they were trying to copy Scott's art style. I truly can't give enough praise to how much I love these designs. Getting to night 2, we're introduced to 2 new characters, Jasper Jowls and the Costume. Let's talk about Jasper first. After Jasper leaves the stage, he will wander around the cameras until he attacks you. You might notice that on night 2, a stage call switch appears on your desk. When Jasper attacks you, he will appear in front of you like the withered animatronics from FNAF 2. When he does, you hold the stage call switch, which will make Jasper go back to his stage. That doesn't sound terribly difficult, and it isn't. However, the characters in this game a lot of the time will actually wait and attack you at the same time rather than attacking you as soon as they can. As difficult as this makes the game, I love it. It really makes you feel like the animatronics are working together to try to ambush you. This game does a really good job at making you feel outnumbered, unprepared, and vulnerable. Now let's talk about the costume. The costume is, well, a fucking costume. It's the suit that Chuck E. Cheese workers walk around the pizzeria in, playing as Chucky. However, unlike the animatronics, there should be no wiring in him since he's a costume, so I've always wondered how he's moving around. Anyways, he'll appear on camera 4, and it's your job to keep a very close eye on him. The costume can't move if you're looking at him, and once he moves to another location in the building, there's no way to make him go back. Once he gets to your doorway, just like Chucky, you'll have to close the gate. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say you closed the gate to keep him out? I apologize because he won't let you. This single moment right here is the reason why I chose to make a video on this game. The actual fear I got when I first saw this while playing left a mark on me that no other FNAF game, or any horror game for that matter, ever has. The costume will never kill you. He'll just stand outside of your office and prevent you from ever being able to close the gate. The most terrifying part is he's playing with you. He knows he's stronger than the door is, so he'll let you get the gate about halfway closed before forcing it all the way open. Then he'll let you pull it halfway down again, and he'll do this forever. He will never go away. He doesn't care about your flashlight, and he doesn't care about the stage call. He's toying with you, letting you know that no matter what, Chucky is coming, and when he does, I'm not going to let you keep him out. This is the coolest thing in a FNAF game I have ever seen, and I wish more of them would do interesting and surprising things like this. I could talk about the costume all day, but let's move on to Night 3. On Night 3, we're introduced to Mr. Munch. Mr. Munch will occasionally leave his stage and appear on one of the cameras. When he does, you have only a small amount of time to figure out which camera he's on. Once you find it, he'll go back to his stage. His mechanics alone are super simple to deal with, but now we actively have a character that prevents us from looking at the costume. Since there's no power, and Chucky and Jasper both have sound cues for when they're attacking, I'd just sit on camera 4 and watch the costume until one of their sound cues played. This made it so that the costume almost never had a chance to move, but with the addition of Mr. Munch, now there's a character that actively forces me to look away and give the costume time to move around. This is such a simple mechanic that was executed beautifully. Honestly, the Radiance team is so talented, I can't wait for their future projects. Night 4 introduces Hell and Henny. If the way these characters behaved didn't make you feel like they were working together to catch you already, then Helen will definitely make you think that way. Helen works almost the same way as Jasper. Once she leaves her stage, she'll move around the cameras before attacking you in your office. However, rather than standing in front of you, Helen will only appear when you're looking at the door. She almost exclusively attacks at the same time as Chucky, so after you deal with him, you turn around to find no one. This is because Helen doesn't stand in front of you when she attacks. She'll stand right on either side of your office, and since for a majority of the game, everything you need to touch is in the middle of your screen, you actually can't see Helen when she's in your office unless you go out of your way to check both sides. This is such a cool fucking mechanic. Even though she does the same thing Jasper does, she does it in such a unique and different way, it might as well be a completely different mechanic. If Radiance didn't already have enough praise from me, this right here adds even more. Night 5 introduces, in my opinion, the most disappointing character in the main game, Pasquale. He's not disappointing because of his design, quite the opposite. I think his design is actually one of the best. It's disappointing because of his mechanic. Compared to the other characters in the main game, Pasquale is pretty boring when it comes to how he plays. At some point of the night, when you lower your camera, he may twitch for 3 seconds. When he does, you have to do a stage call. If you don't do that in time, he leaves his stage for a brief moment and then jump scares you. That's it. He doesn't move around the cameras, and he doesn't team up with another character. He just feels so out of place. It feels like he was just a filler character because 5 stage characters are more interesting than 4. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people think Pasquale is the best character in this game, but to me he just seems so underwhelming compared to how interesting and unique the rest of the characters are. And there we go! That's the completed main game. Of course, there's still more to talk about, but I just want to say how amazing of an experience the main game is to play. Night 5 alone took me about half an hour to beat. It's super hard, but I think that suits the game perfectly. Never in my playthrough of the main game did I feel like I lost because of RNG. It always felt like I was just outsmarted by the animatronics, which is what I think Radiance was going for, or at least is what I hope they were going for. They did a fantastic job at crafting this game, and even with how disappointed I was with Pasquale's mechanics, I still think overall the main game is a masterpiece. Now we can start talking about the challenges in this game. Rather than going over each of them, I'm just going to talk about True Nightmare mode, this game's all 20 mode. I'll admit it here and say I myself did not beat True Nightmare, so for this segment, all gameplay you see will be from Shooter25, one of the most talented FNAF challenge runners of all time. Which is why you'll see this mouse icon on the side of the screen. It's something Shooter adds to his videos, and I think they're a really nice touch. Good job, Shooter. The fact you were able to complete this is astonishing. Let's go over each new character that is added in this mode alphabetically. The first new character is Dolly Dimples. She will appear in front of the player and sing. You have to hold down the control button to prevent her from deactivating your stage call switch. I love the idea of another character preventing you from doing something you need to do. I love how Mr. Munch prevents you from looking at the costume, and I love how the costume prevents you from closing the gate. So a character preventing you from using the stage call switch, in my opinion, is a great addition. However, I wish the way she prevents it made for a more interesting game mechanic. I totally understand there's not a whole lot of ways to add new unique mechanics in a game that doesn't have a whole lot of options, but I feel like the Radiance team could have thought of something a little bit more interesting than just another music box mechanic. However, this is a challenge mode, and for that reason, I'm not going to give this game much shit for it. Modern Chucky is another character added in the challenges. He works almost exactly the same as normal Chucky does. He'll make his way to your door and play a sound cue. Then you'll have to close the gate until he goes away. However, I actually think modern Chucky is a lot easier to deal with than regular Chucky is. Now, I know I said I never beat True Nightmare, but I did pour about 2 hours of attempts in. First off, modern Chucky plays a sound cue when he leaves, unlike regular Chucky, so that alone makes him a little easier. But he's always faster than regular Chucky is. You might think that would make him harder, but it really doesn't. On True Nightmare mode, his time to kill is 6 seconds, and that speeds up as you're closing the gate. Unlike regular Chucky, modern Chucky doesn't care how far the gate is closed. He just cares if the gate is closed or closing when his kill timer ends. Which means, yes, he will leave even if the gate has only been closing for half a second. I understand why he's like this, because if he wasn't, beating him would be almost impossible, but it doesn't make sense that he'll give up even if the door is still open enough to the point where he wouldn't even have to crouch to be able to get in, but that's nitpicky. The next character is Munch Jr., and well, he's a character alright. By far my least favorite character in the whole game, simply because his mechanic, I feel, is the laziest. Munch Jr. will randomly appear in your office sometimes, and when he does, you'll have to find him and click on him. If you don't click him fast enough, the next time you lower the camera, his stupid fat ass will sit on it and prevent you from opening it again, meaning Mr. Munch will absolutely eat your ass next time he attacks, and the costume will be free to fuck with your door as much as he wants. I don't think I really have to explain why this mechanic is so underwhelming, so I won't. And finally, we have the bear. The bear will start on the other side of the gate, slumped over. He will stay there until he decides to attack. He attacks by just standing up. Surprising, considering this guy is jumbo-sized. When he stands up, you have to flash your flashlight at him until he sits his fat ass back down. Not doing so in time will result in... You want to take a guess? Want to take a wild stab? What's that? Huh? Oh yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. He fucking kills ya. Overall, another mechanic I'm not super wowed by, but again, I understand that they were adding characters to the gameplay loop from the main game, and that, in terms of adding new characters, there wasn't a whole lot of options for them, so again, not going to give them a whole lot of shit. And those are all the characters the challenges add, and yes, I do mean add. After beating the game, you actually don't have access to all these characters right away. Just like FNAF 2, there are multiple pre-made custom nights that you can play. After beating each one, you unlock one of the characters I mentioned previously, which I think is actually a really cool addition, and is another example of how this fan game stands out from all the others. After beating True Nightmare Mode, a cutscene plays. You're greeted to Costume, who grabs his face and takes his mask off, revealing a mirror showing what I can only imagine is Fred Andrews, the character you play as. Afterwards, it fades to black and the game ends. Five Nights at Freddy's has a very distinct formula that makes all of its fan games instantly recognizable. Very rarely do I see a FNAF fan game and not be able to say it's a FNAF fan game, and I think you'd agree. If I showed you a video clip of a FNAF fan game you've never seen, I'm pretty confident that you'd be able to tell me it's a FNAF fan game, and you would most likely be 100% right. Sometimes, however, a FNAF fan game will be so well made to the point that at first glance you'd think it's just a normal horror game. Obviously, if you were to begin playing it, you'd very quickly notice it's a fan game, but my point is that in the gaming landscape, unless you're specifically looking for a FNAF fan game to play, even just seeing that formula or look of one would probably turn somebody away. And the game I'll be covering today is a perfect example of the opposite of that. By looking at the gameplay of this game, there's a good chance that, considering you haven't seen it before, you might not be able to tell it's a FNAF fan game at all. That's also considering you don't know who Circus Baby is. I'll get more into her when the time comes, but whatever. I really needed a hook to start this video with. Maybe this one isn't my strongest, but it's what I wrote, so it's what we're going with. The game we'll be diving into today is the Web of Cogs and Oil. Before we begin, in the last video I asked you what your favorite non-DLC specimen from Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion was and why. My favorite comment was this one by Joker of Spades. They chose Specimen 1 because it's pretty funny how it has killed a person, and I agree. I know that they cause heart attacks to kill, but I think the funny part is how that's only ever worked on one person, one time, ever. Also, I've never said this publicly, but I have a Twitter and an Instagram account that you can follow if you're interested. I'm not super active on either right now, but I figure it'd be the normal YouTuber thing to do, so those are in the link in the description. YouTube also keeps sending me emails telling me to set up channel memberships. I feel like it's a bit too early in this channel's lifespan to set something like that up, but let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. I would just put stuff on there for members like early access to videos, allowing you guys to have a say in what game I make a video on next, blah blah blah, membership stuff. Also, let me know if you'd prefer I did it through YouTube memberships or Patreon, but of course, that doesn't need to happen if you all don't want it to. Sorry, that intro was a bit longer than my normal ones, but it's over now, so let's hop into the Web of Cogs and Oil. The Web of Cogs and Oil is both similar to Five Nights at Freddy's and different from it at the same time. In Five Nights at Freddy's, you start on a menu screen, select new game, and night 1 begins. The Web of Cogs and Oil does it a bit differently. Rather than having the game split up into nights, it's split up into challenges. The Web of Cogs and Oil has 4 monsters, and each monster has its own challenge that you can select from the menu, and each plays differently. I actually really like this non-linearity because if I were to get stuck on one monster and get super frustrated, I could always take a break from that one and work on another. Now, of course, to be fair, I don't feel like you'll be getting frustrated with any of these monsters because none of their challenges I felt were very difficult. In fact, I beat all but one of them on the first try. What can I say? Pretty amazing. So, yeah, worship me. Moving along, I'm going to be talking about the monsters from left to right as they appear on the menu. So let's begin by talking about the corpse. The corpse is by far the easiest to defeat. When you load in, you'll immediately see a timer that begins counting down, and this is the same for all monsters. All you have to do is survive until that timer runs out. I actually really like this mechanic because I feel it causes much more anxiety and stress because you can really see how close you are to completing the challenge, and when you feel like you're on the brink of losing, seeing that you only have 10 seconds left to go can really make your asshole invert even deeper into your body. The corpse has a very basic mechanic. In this challenge, you're locked in a freezer with it. You are at the back of the freezer and the corpse is standing in the doorway blocking your only exit. All he does is walk forward, but he'll only do so when the lights on the ceiling begin to dim. I think this is really creepy. Not scary, but creepy. I'd like to imagine that he only moves while the lights are dim in hopes that you don't see him moving. Imagining it like that makes the atmosphere all the more terrifying. So, how do you keep the lights from going dim, you may be asking? Well, if you'd shut up and let me do my job here, I'd tell you, so pipe down, bud. In front of you, facing the corpse, there is a pole coming out of the ground with a crank attached to it. When you spin the crank, it'll recharge the lights on the ceiling, and if the corpse had already inched closer to you, as the lights become brighter, he'll move away from you and back to the entrance of the freezer. But if that were all, it'd be far too easy. Behind you, there is a thermostat that is constantly going down, making the freezer colder. You'll have to make sure the freezer's temperature doesn't drop too low, because if it gets too cold, you'll shiver so hard that it causes your back to snap in half and you'll die. However, you have to make sure you don't raise the temperature of the freezer too high either. The higher the temperature of the freezer, the faster your lights will dim, leaving you vulnerable to the corpse. And that's it. Do that until the timer runs out and you'll have beaten the corpse. Before we move on to the next monster, I'd like to mention that there is a remaster of this game that is currently being worked on. It's on hiatus right now, but I think it'd be fun to offer some suggestions to the dev that I think would be a cool addition. I love the way each monster plays as it is, but I think it'd be a cool idea if there was sort of a new game plus type feature, wherein after you beat a monster, you can challenge them again and the difficulty will increase, granting you a second star for that monster. But I feel that the way you'd increase the difficulty should definitely be through mechanics rather than just saying, "Hey, thermostat, go down quick, corpse move faster and throw cheeks." For the corpse, I think a really interesting way to increase his difficulty would be to make it so that once he inches closer to you, he won't move back once you recharge the lights. This will make the whole challenge feel much more intense, as you won't be able to spend nearly as long on the thermostat as you typically could. Again, this is purely a new game plus type of idea, as I think the way each monster plays normally is pretty perfectly balanced. This would just be for the sociopaths who want more of a challenge. The second monster is the Dxtr. The Dxtr is a little toy clown. In his challenge, you're sitting in a bedroom with him in front of you. All you have as a tool of defense is a flashlight. However, the battery to this flashlight drains pretty quickly, so having it on for too long will very easily fuck you over. The Dxtr begins in front of you, slumped over. You'll have to listen closely for his footsteps. Once you hear him begin to move, you'll have to find which side of the room he's running towards and flash your light at him. Once you do, he'll ragdoll on the ground in a very painful looking way. If at any point he goes off of either side of your screen, it's game over. Fun fact, this is the only monster I lost to, if you were curious. However, I don't blame myself. Watch this clip. Hey, that was not my fault. That was not my fault. We flashed him. We flashed him. What is this bullshit? That, my friends, is what I call Class A bullshit. Anyways, that's not all this little fucker does. If all you had to do was listen, it'd be incredibly easy. This guy will also move without making any noise at all. When he does, he won't move towards the sides of your screen like he does when he makes noise. Instead, he'll slowly inch towards you. This forces you to turn your flashlight on to check his location all the time to make sure he's not creeping up on you. But of course, because your flashlight drains so quickly, doing so isn't exactly something you'll want to do. On top of this, there are also two jack-in-the-boxes on both sides of the room. Occasionally, they will pop open and create footstep sounds that are basically identical to the Dxtr's, and will trick you into turning your light on. Get it? Trick, like in Dxtr? Like it's his name? Dxtr? Trick? Like that's why they call him the Trick. Repeat this process until the timer runs out and you're all good. I think a fun way to increase the Dxtr's difficulty would be to require your flashlight to be on for a period of time before you could turn it off. I say this because by the time I finished the challenge, my flashlight battery was basically half full. All you need to do is very quickly flash it off and on. This gives you enough time to check and make sure he's still there without wasting almost any battery at all. By requiring your flashlight to stay on for even a full second or two before being allowed to be turned back off, you would force the player to have a much lower battery life by the time the challenge is over, making you really think about when you should be using it throughout the challenge. The third monster is the Demon. This one is a doozy. In this challenge, you'll find yourself in a basement with 4 candles and a pentagram on the wall. All you have to do is manage 3 things. 1. Make sure the demon's candles don't go out. The demon has 3 of the 4 candles. 2. Make sure the servant's candle doesn't go out either. The servant has the remaining 1 candle. And 3. Make sure the pentagram on the wall doesn't get too bright. Doing all of these things is really easy. It's managing them all at the same time that can get stressful. Let's start with the pentagram. Throughout the night, it will slowly begin to get brighter and brighter. All you have to do is click hold on it to slowly dim it back down. It's pretty much the music box from FNAF 2. The demon's candles will occasionally go out at random. When one does, all you have to do is click on it to relight it. Super simple. It's the servant's candle that makes this challenge hard. The servant's candle goes out far more frequently than the demon's does, and when his candle does go out, instead of killing you like the demon does, he instead will go over to the demon's candles and blow them out. And he does this very fast. It feels like most of the time that the moment that little asshole's candle goes out, he spawns on the demon's candles and blows those bitches out. It's honestly the pentagram, however, that will really make your penis retract inside your body. Even though dealing with it is super easy, because of how frequently you'll be dealing with the servant, you'll often find yourself not having enough time to tend to it, meaning that as the challenge comes closer to a close, the pentagram is going to be bright as shit, and I promise you that when it is, you'll be holding your breath. I think an interesting way to make this challenge more difficult would be to have the servant blow out 2 candles at a time rather than just 1. This only works because when all of the demon's candles are snuffed, he doesn't kill you immediately. I also think that if all the demon's candles are out and the servant's candles are out at the same time, you should die instantly. This would just add another epic layer of stress to a challenge that already fondled me non-consensually. The final monster is the machine. This one is Circus Baby from FNAF. I don't totally understand why the dev chose to use a FNAF character in this game, considering the other 3 monsters were all original, but I digress. If the other 3 challenges didn't make your butthole pucker enough, I promise you that this one will. In this challenge, you're in a very large industrial building. In the room you're in, you'll find a door with a valve keeping it closed, a window in front of you, and a maintenance panel. This challenge switches up the formula in a really small but very interesting way. In this challenge, you're against the clock. Rather than surviving, you never want that timer to reach 0, because if you do, I bet you could take a pretty good guess as to what happens to you. So how do you escape? Well, throughout the building there are several locked doors. You'll have to use the maintenance panel to unlock each of them before leaving the room you're in and escaping. Upon opening the maintenance panel, you'll see all 5 doors marked red and a D-pad on the side of the screen. You'll have to wait until one of the arrows on the D-pad glows green and then press that corresponding arrow on your keyboard. Do this 5 times and the door will turn green, signifying that it has been unlocked, which means doing this 25 times is all you have to do. However, these arrows don't glow immediately. I'd say there's a good 3 seconds between each arrow lighting up, and since you're in a time crunch where every second counts, 3 seconds will feel like a lifetime. You might be wondering where Baby is. Well, you better not keep your panel up for too long because she will quickly, and I mean very fucking quickly, inch closer and closer towards your window. Just looking at her will make her slowly move away. But once she reaches a certain point, no matter how long you look at her, she won't move back. If she gets too close, she'll break the window and kill you. This adds such a high level of stress it isn't even funny. You might think, well, if the arrows take a while to glow and you need to spend time watching Baby, that sounds super simple. But you also need to keep in mind how fast she moves. Having that panel up for 1 second will allow her to move 2 stages towards your window sometimes, and it'll take a solid 3 to 4 seconds to make her completely go away. Do you see the problem here? It is so incredibly stressful, but hey, once you unlock all 5 doors, all you need to do is leave. But all the things are done. Oh, you're fucking kidding. You're fucking kidding. I lied. After doing all that and realizing how little time you have left on the clock, Now you need to slowly crank the valve on the door enough times to get it to unlock. And unlike the maintenance panel, the door is not on the same screen as the window, so you'll have to painstakingly look back and forth from the door to baby. Again, 1 second is enough to make her launch light speed at that goddamn window, so having to look away, do a task, and then look back will feel like a fucking calendar year. But once you get that door open, you're home free. I honestly can't think of a super great way to make this challenge any harder in a meaningful way. Even though I beat it on the first try, it was still easily the most stressful and challenging. I'm pretty sure I only finished with 2 seconds remaining, but if I had to think of something to add more challenge, I'd say each door you unlock in the maintenance panel should have a different way of unlocking it. The first door could be the arrow keys, but maybe the second door you have to click one of 9 glowing buttons instead, and then another one could maybe be a number on your keyboard, and then each other door would have their own simple task to do, and you could have each door's task randomized so that you couldn't prepare for what you'll have to see in a playthrough. I think you should definitely leave the final door section the same though. I think it's so cool how that's thrown at you last minute, and I love it. But that was the web of cogs and oil. Overall, I think this game is fantastic. It's only a 20 to 30 minute playthrough, so if you have the time, I definitely recommend you check it out. You can watch my full playthrough on my second channel, Dxtr Black. I think letting the player choose the order of the monsters they want to fight adds so much to the game that I don't think enough people think about. Imagine you had to complete them in a set order. I'm sure most people did them from left to right, but imagine you didn't even have the choice. I know it seems small, but I feel like if we didn't have the option, we'd definitely notice. Although what you need to do in each night is incredibly easy, they're still balanced in such a perfect way that by the final 30 seconds, they'll all have you stressing out and sweating more than when you walk up the stairs at a below reasonable pace. I know you guys are out of shape. Go hop on the treadmill for 15 to 30 minutes a day. I promise you'll notice a difference in how you feel. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Before I go, the question of the video is, what is your favorite monster from the web of cogs and oil, and why? With the question being asked, I've been Dxtr, and I'll see you all in the next video. See ya!